Chapter 2658. Even if Jun Wuya arrived, Xie Tian was still unwilling to give up this opportunity. If it was during normal times, when Jun Wuya and Xiao Chun were in their peak condition, Xie Tian would definitely not make such a crazy decision. But now, Xiao Chun was clearly seriously injured, and almost half of his combat strength had been lost. Faced with such an excellent opportunity, Xie Tian was unwilling to give it up. As soon as his voice fell, Xie Tian coldly shouted, "Kill!" Following Xie Tian's voice, the people under him naturally attacked the two of them without fear of death. Seeing this, Jun Wuya also consciously faced Xie Tian. It could be seen that Xiao Chen's current situation was very bad. If Xiao Chen faced Xie Tian at this time, it would definitely not be a good thing. So Jun Wuya took the initiative to fight with Xie Tian. And Xie Tian had no other choice. With Jun Wuya blocking him, Xie Tian could not free himself to attack Xiao Chun. However, Xie Tian had already expected this scene. So after fighting with Jun Wuya, Xie Tian also said to his subordinates, "Kill Xiao Chun at all costs." He could hold off Jun Wuya alone, even if he might be suppressed by Jun Wuya because of his current injuries. As long as he could kill Xiao Chun, it was acceptable. Moreover, Xie Tian could not attack Xiao Chun. At the same time, Jun Wuya could not save Xiao Chun under Xie Tian's entanglement. Neither of them could care about anything else. After hearing Xie Tian's order, a group of Xie Tian's subordinates surrounded Xiao Chun. These people's cultivation had not reached the ancestor realm, but there were dozens of Emperor Realm masters. Xiao Chun might not care too much about these dozens of Emperor Realm masters, but now, these dozens of Emperor Realm masters gave Xiao Chun a lot of pressure. Not to mention, other than these dozens of Emperor Realm masters, there were even more End Realm, Dao Realm, and Comprehension Realm masters. These people all obeyed Xie Tian's orders and did not participate in the battle between Xie Tian and Jun Wuya. Instead, they all surrounded Xiao Chun, looking like they would not give up until they killed Xiao Chun. In this regard, Xiao Chun naturally would not give up and fight back. Although he had consumed a lot of energy and his injuries were not light, Xiao Chun was still able to fight back. However, facing the siege of so many people, Xiao Chun still felt a little powerless. It was not difficult for outsiders to see this. Everyone could see that Xiao Chun was fighting very hard at this time. The power of every attack was much weaker than before. As a result, it was very difficult for Xiao Chun to kill these Emperor Realm masters in an instant. Originally, with Xiao Chen's strength, he could kill an Emperor Realm master with a single slash. But now, because of the problem of consumption and injuries, the power of Xiao Chen's attacks was much weaker. It was impossible for him to kill an Emperor Realm master in an instant. As long as several Emperor Realm masters worked together, they could perfectly block Xiao Chen's attacks. As a result, Xiao Chen's threat to Xie Tian's subordinates was naturally much smaller. If they could block Xiao Chen's attacks, they would have the qualifications to fight Xiao Chun. This was also the point that Xiao Chun could not do anything about at the moment. Xiao Chen's battle was very difficult. It could even be said that he was barely holding on. He could be seriously injured and fall into a coma at any time. Moreover, in this kind of battle, Xiao Chen's already serious injuries became worse. There were even several times when Xiao Chun was directly injured by these people because of his slow movements. 29 GG with injuries on top of injuries, Jun Wuya was worried. On the other hand, Xie Tian was relieved. It seemed that Xiao Chen's situation was worse than he had guessed. In this case, his decision was correct. Even if Jun Wuya was here, there was still hope to directly kill Xiao Chun. With confidence in his heart, Xie Tian was even less likely to let Jun Wuya intervene in Xiao Chen's battle. Looking at the current situation, Xiao Chun obviously would not be able to hold on for long. As long as there was enough time, his subordinates would definitely be able to kill Xiao Chun. After being injured, he still had to face the siege of many of Xie Tian's subordinates. Xiao Chen's movements became slower and slower, and there were more and more openings. At the same time, the power of each attack was constantly weakening. This proved that Xiao Chen's situation was becoming more and more dangerous. Everyone could see this. Looking at Shao Chun, who was still holding on, the disciples of the sword sect who had been protected by Shao Chun from the beginning couldn't help themselves. They watched as Shao Chun was gradually suppressed and blood kept flowing out of the corner of his mouth. While many disciples were worried, Shao Chun's left arm was directly cut off by an Emperor Realm cultivator because he couldn't react in time. His entire left arm was cut off and blood spurted out like a fountain. Finally, some of the disciples couldn't help themselves. They could see that Shao Chun had really reached his limit. Otherwise, how could these Emperor Realm cultivators possibly hurt Shao Chun? But now, Shao Chun's reaction and attacks had weakened too much. He couldn't display his full strength at all. For a moment, these disciples couldn't help but prepare to attack again. Although their cultivations weren't a match for Xie Tian's subordinates, and it could even be said that they weren't on the same level. So what? They couldn't just watch their sect master die. Even if they weren't a match for him, they could still use self-detonation to delay Xie Tian's subordinates and buy time for Shao Chun. Just as these disciples were about to attack, suddenly, a terrifying pressure came from the distance. There were many Emperor Realm cultivators in this pressure. It was obvious that Xianyuan Ling and the others had returned. Xianyuan Ling and his group had also rushed over. There weren't many of them, only 20 or so, but they were all Emperor Realm masters. Xianyuan Ling and the others had arrived in time and completely turned the situation around. Just like Shao Chun, Xianyuan Ling and the others had also rushed back to the sword sect without waiting for the End Realm and Dao Realm elders. With the timely return of Xianyuan Ling and the others, the situation had been completely reversed. However, when Xianyuan Ling and Long Qing saw Shao Chun being besieged by Xie Tian's subordinates, their faces sank. At this moment, Shao Chun looked very miserable. Not only was his body dyed red with blood, but his left arm had also been cut off at the shoulder. Seeing Shao Chun's arm being cut off, Xianyuan Ling and Long Qing didn't say anything and directly joined the battle, blocking Xie Tian's subordinates for Shao Chun. Shao Chun's serious injury had completely infuriated Xianyuan Ling and Long Qing. The two of them didn't hold back at all and went all out as soon as they attacked. Chapter 2659. Shao Chun had rushed back first. Although Xianyuan Ling had guessed that there would be a fierce battle, he hadn't expected that Shao Chun would be so heavily injured. His entire left arm had been cut off. Although with Shao Chun's cultivation and the heritage of the sword sect, it wasn't difficult for him to regrow a severed limb other than his severed left arm. The other injuries on Shao Chun's body were also very serious. From the injuries on Shao Chun's body, it wasn't hard to see how intense the battle had been. Fortunately, Jun Wuya had arrived before them. Otherwise, Shao Chun would have been doomed. But now, with the arrival of Xianyuan Ling, Long Qing, and the others, the situation had been completely reversed. More than half of the sword sect's Emperor Realm masters had returned. Although they still didn't have the advantage in numbers, they were at least enough to fight Xie Tian. Seeing Xianyuan Ling, Long Qing, and the others appear, Xie Tian, who was fighting Jun Wuya, naturally had an incomparably gloomy expression. Every time he was close to killing Shao Chun, an accident would occur. First it was Jun Wuya, and now it was Xianyuan Ling and the others. His heart was filled with regret, but he couldn't blame anyone. Xie Tian had wasted too much time from the beginning. Since the destruction of Sword City, Xie Tian had wasted too much time, and this wasted time had given Shao Chun and the others time to come back. But who could be blamed for this? It was Xie Tian's own decision. Moreover, Xie Tian didn't know that Shao Chun and the others weren't even in the sword sect from the beginning. It was precisely because he had wasted so much time that Xie Tian had inadvertently given Shao Chun and the others a chance. Seeing that there was no hope of killing Shao Chun at this time, and that the sword sect masters had successfully arrived, there was no meaning in continuing the battle. Moreover, he was now firmly entangled by Jun Wuya, and Xie Tian was already injured. Helplessly, Xie Tian could only reluctantly give the order to retreat. Such a rare opportunity had slipped away from his hands. Xie Tian was filled with anger and regret, but there was nothing he could do. After all, time couldn't be reversed. With Xie Tian's order, his subordinates quickly left the battle and chose to retreat. Xie Tian himself was the same. After exchanging a punch with Jun Wuya, Xie Tian also retreated, quickly distancing himself from Jun Wuya. Coldly looking at the heavily injured Xiao Chun, Xie Tian didn't say anything as he turned to leave. When Xie Tian took the initiative to retreat, Qin Shiru and the other girls immediately came to Xiao Chen's side. Seeing Xiao Chun covered in blood and with his left arm cut off, the girls' eyes turned red and they revealed looks of worry. Relax, it's not a big deal. Seeing the appearance of the girls, Xiao Chun comforted them with a smile. Only, his comforting words didn't receive the approval of the girls. It was already like this. Could it still be said that it wasn't a big deal? Hong Xiao and Gu Lingyao, the two little girls, supported Xiao Chun without any explanation. Xin Yuanling and the others didn't have any intentions of chasing after them. Xiao Chun was heavily injured, and it wasn't time to chase after Xie Tian. Moreover, even if they chased after them, they still had to let Xiao Chun take the lead. Watching Xie Tian's group leave, Xin Yuanling's group, as well as Jun Wuya's group, all gathered around Xiao Chun. Perhaps it was because the danger was over, but Xiao Chun secretly let out a sigh of relief. At the same time, his vision turned dark and he fainted. His injuries were too serious. Facing Xie Tian and the 1,000 experts under him by himself, for Xiao Chun, the pressure was very large. Being able to last until now was already a miracle. Seeing Xiao Chun faint, everyone quickly brought Xiao Chun back to the sword sect. As for the following matters, naturally there would be other people to take care of it. At Xiao Chen's residence, Xiao Qing and Bai Ruyue, who had rushed over after hearing the news, saw Xiao Chen's appearance and their hearts filled with pain. However, the two of them couldn't help and could only worry on the side. As for Qin Shiru and 100 Flower Fairy, they spoke up to comfort them. Mother, it's fine. Husband's cultivation is high, so there won't be any danger. Qin Shiru and 100 Flower Fairy repeatedly assured that Xiao Chen's life wouldn't be in danger, but seeing Xiao Chen's miserable appearance, Bai Ruyue didn't listen to a single word. Right now her mind was filled with thoughts of Xiao Chun. Even Xiao Qing didn't say a word. Although he looked much calmer than Bai Ruyue, it wasn't hard to see from Xiao Qing's expression that he was extremely worried at this moment. Xin Yuanling, Long Qing, Jun Wuya, and the others fed Xiao Chun a healing pill. After some simple treatment, they slowly stabilized Xiao Chen's injuries and everyone let out a sigh of relief. However, Xin Yuanling was still worried and said to an Emperor Realm Master beside him, informed Dan Xinyang and asked him to come to the sword sect as soon as possible. He had to let Dan Xinyang come over personally. After all, in the entire Great Thousand World, Dan Xinyang's medical skills were definitely the best. Regarding this, the Emperor Realm Master didn't say anything and nodded before immediately turning around to contact Dan Xinyang. After doing all this, everyone finally let out a sigh of relief. Seeing that Xiao Chen's injuries had almost stabilized, but he was still unconscious, they could only wait for Dan Xinyang to arrive. They left the room together, and everyone left one after another. Only Xin Yuanling, Long Qing, and Jun Wuya stayed behind to accompany Xiao Qing, Bai Ruyue, and Qin Shu. Compared to the others, Xin Yuanling had been blaming himself. To put it bluntly, this matter was caused by Xin Yuanling's own mistake. All along, Xin Yuanling had thought that Xie Tian would target the shrines and would definitely intervene in the battle between the shrines. However, Xin Yuanling had never thought that Xie Tian's target would actually be the sword sect. It was precisely because of this mistake that Xiao Chun was seriously injured, and even the sword sect was almost destroyed by Xie Tian. This kind of mistake couldn't be ignored. If he wasn't careful, it could even bring a devastating blow to the sword sect. It wasn't easy to have a think tank of sect. Every decision could be said to be related to the survival of a sect. Don't look at how powerful the sword sect was now. This time, there was no doubt that Xin Yuanling was alarmed. No matter how powerful a sect was, it couldn't let down its guard. Otherwise, it could fall into a forbidden area that was beyond redemption, just like this time. Sitting alone in the courtyard without saying a word, Xin Yuanling blamed himself in his heart. At the same time, he also understood that he was still very immature in some aspects. Unconsciously, Xin Yuanling suddenly thought of Li Tian, the think tank of Yun Palace. If it was Li Tian this time, there wouldn't have been such a mistake. Xin Yuanling thought this. Seeking collection, seeking monthly votes, seeking recommendation. End of this chapter. Chapter 2660. Li Tian was the think tank of the Cloud Palace, so Xin Yuanling was naturally no stranger to him. Previously, in the Great World, Xin Yuanling had secretly admired Li Tian. In Xin Yuanling's opinion, Li Tian could truly be called a strategist, and he was still far from that level. Li Tian was the think tank of the Cloud Palace, so Xin Yuanling was naturally no stranger to him. Previously, in the Great World, Xin Yuanling had secretly admired Li Tian. In Xin Yuanling's opinion, Li Tian could truly be called a strategist, and he was still far from that level. Take this incident as an example. If it had been Li Tian, he definitely wouldn't have made such a mistake. He definitely wouldn't have let Xiao Chan fall into such a dangerous situation. He could be considered lucky. Otherwise, if he and the others had been just a little bit late, Xiao Chan would have been doomed. Xin Yuanling remained silent as he sat by himself, deep in thought. Jun Weia had come to Xin Yuanling's side at some point. Seeing Xin Yuanling secretly blaming himself, Jun Weia said, "Even a wise man can make mistakes. Don't take it to heart. Only by making mistakes can you improve." Jun Weia comforted Xin Yuanling, which was a rare occurrence. During this period, Jun Weia had been watching Xin Yuanling's actions. It could be said that Xin Yuanling was under the most pressure recently. Not only did he have to deal with the matters of the various Ling Tian sects, but he also had to face the criticism and suspicion of his own people within the Sword sect. For example, Nangong Guan and the others didn't agree with many of Xin Yuanling's actions. It was precisely because of this that Xin Yuanling was under a lot of pressure and wasn't understood by others. However, Jun Weia knew very well that the Sword sect needed such a person. If a sect only had upright and plain-spoken people like Nangong Guan, it definitely wouldn't work. It needed someone like Xin Yuanling, who had outstanding intelligence and was unscrupulous. Jun Weia gently patted Xin Yuanling's shoulder. In response, Xin Yuanling nodded slightly in response. This time, no one blamed Xin Yuanling. Even Xiao Chan didn't have the slightest intention of blaming him. After all, who could guarantee that he wouldn't make any mistakes? Moreover, Xin Yuanling was still very immature in certain aspects. Such a mistake could be forgiven. After staying at Xiao Chen's place for an entire night, Xin Yuanling had to leave to deal with other matters the next day. There were still many things waiting for him to deal with in the Sword sect, the most important of which were the shrines. After a fierce battle, the battle between the Sword sect and the shrines had almost reached its end. The shrine's old ancestor had already been killed, and although the shrines were still stubbornly resisting, it was only a matter of time before they were annihilated. The shrines had been destroyed, so Xin Yuanling still needed to do some finishing work. At the same time, he couldn't let down his guard against Xie Tian. Although he didn't have any intention of making a move against Xie Tian right now, because Xiao Chan was still in a coma from his serious injuries, and adding in the matter of the shrines, the Sword sect didn't have that much energy right now. However, they couldn't ignore Xie Tian's existence. At the very least, they had to know Xie Tian's movements. Xin Yuanling was very busy. As for Xiao Chun, he naturally left it to Xiao Qing, Bai Riyue, Qin Shu, and Long Qing to take care of. Of course, Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and Xiao Wan were also very worried about their father's situation. A day passed, and Dan Xinyang brought Dan Xin to the Sword sect. The first thing he did was to check on Xiao Chen's injuries. After personally checking his injuries, Dan Xinyang secretly let out a sigh of relief. Then he said to the two elders beside him, as well as Qin Shu and the other girls, "It's a good thing that the sect master's cultivation is high and his life isn't in danger. Although his injuries are quite serious, this old man has the confidence to heal them." Xiao Chen's injuries were indeed very serious, but his life wasn't in danger. This was a blessing in disguise. Dan Xingyang had the confidence to heal Xiao Chen, which made everyone secretly let out a sigh of relief. Next, Dan Xingyang fed Xiao Chen some elixirs and then treated his injuries. However, in order to heal Xiao Chen, Dan Xingyang had to personally refine elixirs. Moreover, he would need a large number of heavenly treasures. However, this wasn't a difficult task for the Sword Sect. Now, there were all kinds of heavenly treasures in the Sword Sect treasury. In other words, if the Sword Sect didn't have any, there probably wouldn't be any in the Great Thousand World. Therefore, Qin Shiru waved his hand and said, "Bring Ancestor Qing Yang to the treasury." After all, it was a fact that Dan Valley had merged into the Sword Sect. Dan Xingyang would be the ancestor of the Sword Sect in the future. Therefore, there was no problem with this title. Following Qin Shiru's order, Cao Xing personally led Dan Xingyang to the treasury. Although Dan Xingyang was already the ancestor of the Sword Sect, it was clear that Dan Xingyang didn't have any real power, let alone enter the Sword Sect's treasury at will. Therefore, only with Qin Shiru's order would Cao Xing dare to bring Dan Xingyang to the treasury. In the Sword Sect's treasury, Dan Xingyang quickly found all the materials he needed to refine elixirs. Then, he began to refine elixirs in seclusion. As time passed, Xiao Chen's injuries quickly healed. Seeing that Xiao Chen wasn't in any danger, Qin Shiru and the other girls, as well as the two elders, were no longer as nervous as before. Everyone took turns to take care of Xiao Chen. While Xiao Chen was unconscious from his injuries, Xie Tian, who had escaped from the Sword Sect, returned to his base. His heart was filled with incomparable disappointment. Such a good opportunity had actually been wasted by him. If it wasn't for wasting time in Eastern Sword City, if it wasn't for him being too cautious, Xiao Chen would have already been killed by him. At the very least, he would have been able to capture Qin Shiru and the other girls alive. But because of various reasons, he had failed at the last moment. This was something that Xie Tian found hard to accept. For Xie Tian, this was definitely the best chance to kill Xiao Chen. He probably wouldn't have a chance like this in the future. His heart was filled with helplessness and regret, but he had to face reality. Xiao Chen wasn't dead, so after this, the Sword Sect would turn their guns to deal with him. Because the matters of the various Ling Tian sects have been settled, the Sword Sect's focus would naturally be on him. Although it was impossible in a short period of time, as long as Xiao Chen was healed, the Sword Sect would definitely launch a large-scale attack. When that time came, Xie Tian's situation would be very dangerous. Xie Tian wasn't a fool. He knew that his chances of winning were very low in a head-on fight. So, he always felt that he had to do something before Xiao Chen was healed. At least he had to reverse the situation on his side. But what should he do? Continue to ambush the Sword Sect? This was definitely impossible. After experiencing this matter, the Sword Sect wouldn't make this kind of mistake again. The current Sword Sect would definitely be an iron bucket, so it was impossible to ambush them again. So, if Xie Tian wanted to make a move, he had to start from other aspects. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. This chapter ends. Chapter 2661. Sneak attacking the Sword Sect was definitely impossible. Not to mention how tight the Sword Sect defenses were after this matter. Just based on Xie Tian's current situation, it was already impossible for him to sneak attack the Sword Sect. Xiao Chen was heavily injured and unconscious, and Xie Tian's situation was not that good. He was also heavily injured, but it wasn't as serious as Xiao Chen's. So, sneak attacking the Sword Sect was not realistic. Xie Tian was very clear that he couldn't give the Sword Sect a chance to catch their breath. Once the Sword Sect recovered, his situation would be very dangerous. After all, if he fought them head-on, Xie Tian didn't even have a 30% chance of winning. So, he had to do something at this time. At least he had to change the current situation or grab the Sword Sect's lifeline. Thinking about it, Xie Tian finally decided to target Xiao Chen's family. Directly dealing with Xiao Chen was too hard, so dealing with Xiao Chen's family was the best choice. First, Xiao Chen's family was not as strong as Xiao Chen's family. Second, if he could capture one of Xiao Chen's family members, it would have a large restraining effect on Xiao Chen. When the time came, he could use this to make Xiao Chen hesitate. But who should he target? Xie Tian secretly thought about it. Without knowing what Xie Tian was thinking in the sword sect, after several days of rest, Xiao Chen's injuries had stabilized and he had already woken up. With Xiao Chen waking up, everyone let out a sigh of relief. As for Xiao Chen's severed left arm, they didn't need to worry about it. At the Ancestor Realm, regrowing a severed limb wasn't that hard. As long as his injuries healed, Xiao Chen could solve this problem by going into closed-door cultivation. However, according to Dan Xingyang, Xiao Chen still needed to recuperate for the time being. Moreover, it would be best if he did not fight with others and did not use his spiritual energy. Otherwise, his injuries might recur. Xiao Chen didn't care about Dan Xingyang's words, but Bai Ruyue was very obedient. As a mother, Bai Ruyue didn't consider much. She only hoped that her son would be safe and sound. Therefore, Bai Ruyue directly moved to Xiao Chen's place. On one hand, she wanted to take care of Xiao Chen. On the other hand, she wanted to keep an eye on Xiao Chen and prevent him from doing anything out of line. Originally, there was no need for Bai Ruyue to personally take care of Xiao Chen, but Bai Ruyue was worried about the others, so she insisted on taking care of Xiao Chen herself. No one could persuade her otherwise, so they could only agree in the end. In the past few days, Xiao Chen once again felt his mother's nagging. Now that he finally came to the courtyard to take a breather, Bai Ruyue had been chattering nonstop. "Chen, you can't do such dangerous things in the future. You are mother's only son. If something happens to you, what do you want mother to do? In the future, you have to think twice before you act. Don't be reckless. You have to know that you're not alone. Even if you don't think for yourself, you have to think for Shui Rou and the others." Bai Ruyue chattered nonstop. Although Xiao Chen felt helpless, there was nothing he could do. In the outside world, Xiao Chen was the insufferably arrogant sect master of the sword sect. However, in front of his mother, Xiao Chen had no temper at all. Moreover, after this incident, Bai Ruyue was clearly more worried about Xiao Chen's safety. She kept reminding him as if she wanted to directly instill these thoughts into Xiao Chen's mind. In the end, Xiao Chen helplessly replied, "I understand, mother. What do you know? Even if you know, I think you have ignored my words. Also, let me tell you, Ancestor Qin Yang told you to recuperate. Don't go anywhere during this period of time. I will watch over you. As for the matters of the sword sect, let others handle them. You are not allowed to interfere. If you really can't handle it, you can ask Shui Rou and Bai Hua to help you." It would have been better if Bai Ruyue did not speak, but once Xiao Chen spoke, Bai Ruyue immediately became agitated. She kept scolding Xiao Chen, and in the end, she did not even want Xiao Chen to worry about the matters of the Sword's Gate. Bai Ruyue only wanted her son to be well. In the end, Bai Ruyue's eyes turned red as if she was about to cry. Seeing that his mother was about to cry, Xiao Chen naturally surrendered on the spot. He hurriedly comforted her and promised that he would listen to his mother. Only then did Bai Ruyue feel a little better. In front of Bai Ruyue, Xiao Chen didn't have the slightest ability to fight back. Even though he was an Ancestor Realm expert, when he saw his mother's red eyes, Xiao Chen directly raised his hands and surrendered. There was nothing he could do. Under his mother's strict surveillance, Xiao Chen could only live a life of having his clothes and food taken care of. As for the matters of the sword sect, no one dared to look for Xiao Chen. This was because a few days ago, Song Xing came to look for Xiao Chen, saying that he had something to ask. However, as luck would have it, Bai Ruyue happened to see him. Naturally, the result was obvious. Song Xing was directly scolded by Bai Ruyue. Since then, no one came to look for Xiao Chen to ask about the matters of the sword sect. At the very least, it was impossible before Xiao Chen recovered. This was because Bai Ruyue wouldn't be able to get through. The days passed leisurely. Xiao Chen's recovery was naturally very fast. According to the current situation, he should be able to fully recover in another half a month. At that time, he could go into seclusion to recover his severed left arm. It wouldn't be a big problem. As for the other matters of the sword sect, Xinyuan Ling, Song Xing and the others handled them well. The disciples of the Moon Palace, Saber Sect, Dan Valley, and Talisman Sect had also arrived at the Sword Sect one after another. Moreover, they had temporarily settled down in the Sword Sect. At the same time, the reconstruction of the East Sword City was also progressing in an orderly manner. There was also the expansion of the Swords Gate. After all, they had swallowed up the 4 Great Ling Tian sects in one go. Naturally, the number of disciples in the Swords Gate had increased tremendously. Now, the Swords Gate still needed to expand in order to satisfy the daily lives and cultivation of so many disciples. Of course, these matters were very simple for the Sword Sect. Moreover, the Sword Sect could be said to be rich and imposing now. Expanding the sect was a small matter. However, just as the Sword Sect was in an orderly manner, something happened in Azhou. However, it wasn't a big deal. There was a large family in Azhou, the Wang family. A day ago, there was an internal riot in the Wang family. The current head of the Wang family was killed, and a branch elder of the Wang family successfully usurped the position of the head of the family. This matter could be said to have caused an uproar in Azhou. After all, the Wang family was considered a first-rate force and had quite a bit of influence in Azhou. Now that the head of the family had been killed, it was obviously unavoidable that it would cause a commotion. The matter also quickly spread to the ears of the Sword Sect. Looking at the information sent back from Azhou, Song Xing helplessly shook his head and smiled bitterly. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 2662. The Wang family's internal strife had caused a huge commotion in Yi province. Almost the entire province was affected because of the Wang family's internal strife. The Wang family's businesses were spread all over Yi province. Now that the Wang family's patriarch had been killed and a branch family elder had usurped the throne, the Wang family's businesses would naturally be affected. The Wang family's internal strife had caused a huge commotion in Yi province. Almost the entire province was affected because of the Wang family's internal strife. The Wang family's businesses were spread all over Yi province. Now that the Wang family's patriarch had been killed and a branch family elder had usurped the throne, the Wang family's businesses would naturally be affected. However, under normal circumstances, the Wang family's business wasn't enough to attract the attention of the Sword Sect. It was even more impossible for the Sword Sect to intervene. After all, the Wang family's internal strife might be a big deal in the eyes of other forces, but it wasn't a big deal for the Sword Sect. Because, to put it bluntly, the Sword Sect didn't care who was the Wang family's patriarch. The Sword Sect didn't care who the Wang family's patriarch was. As long as he wasn't stupid and didn't provoke the Sword Sect wouldn't care about such an ant. However, the Wang family situation was somewhat different. The reason was because of a disciple of the Wang family, Wang Minglin, the only daughter of the former Wang family's patriarch. However, he was already dead. Wang Minglin was a disciple of the Sword Sect. Of course, if she was an ordinary disciple, it wouldn't matter. However, this little girl was one of the top 10 disciples of the Sword Sect. Her status was completely different. After so many years, the top 10 disciples of the Sword Sect had naturally changed. Wang Minglin was one of the top 10 disciples of the Sword Sect. She was currently ranked 9th. Because of Wang Minglin's identity, the Wang family's business was obviously different. After all, the top 10 disciples of the Sword Sect could already represent the Sword Sect. If Wang Minglin insisted on intervening in the Wang family's business, Song Xing couldn't stop her. He even had to support her. After all, if the top 10 disciples of the Sword Sect couldn't even protect their own family, it would be too ridiculous. What made Song Xing even more embarrassed was that Wang Minglin, Xiao Wan, and Lu Qingyao had a good relationship with each other. The three of them weren't inseparable, but they could be considered as close friends. Now that Wang Minglin's family was in trouble, with Xiao Wan and Lu Qingyao's personalities, they wouldn't just sit back and do nothing. Furthermore, Xiao Wan was the young mistress of Swords Gate. Her identity was even more special. This put Song Xing in a dilemma. While Song Xing was filled with helplessness, on the other side, In a cave mansion belonging to Wang Menglin, Lu Qingyao and Xiao Wan were sitting together. It was obvious that the three women didn't look too good, especially Wang Menglin. Her eyes were red. Obviously, she had just cried. Wang Mengling had also received news from the Wang family that her father had been killed. She was filled with grief and indignation. Lu Qingyao and Xiao Wan rushed over as soon as they heard the news. It took them a lot of effort to comfort Wang Mengling. Wang Mengling's eyes were filled with hatred. I want to avenge my father. It wasn't strange for Wang Mengling to want to avenge her father's death. Instead, it was a very normal reaction. Lu Qingyao and Xiao Wan didn't object to it, but Lu Qingyao said, "Will the sect agree? After all, this is an internal matter of the Wang family." Under normal circumstances, the Sword's Gate would not casually intervene in the internal affairs of other forces, not to mention the internal strife for power and profit. The Sword's Gate had even less reason to intervene. Wang Menglin didn't hesitate. "If the sect doesn't agree, I'll go back myself." Needless to say, Wang Menglin's talent was undeniable. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to become one of the top 10 sword freaks. Although Wang Menglin was only ranked 9th among the top 10 sword freaks, her cultivation had already reached Dao Rel perfection. She wasn't weaker than some deacons. As the sword sect grew stronger, the vice sect masters of the sword sect were all in the Emperor realm. The elders were all in the End realm, and the deacons were in the Dao realm. It could be said that Sword's Gate had made a qualitative leap in all aspects. Xiao Wan said after hearing Wang Menglin's words. "Let's discuss it with the vice sect masters." Xiao Wan was still worried about Wang Menglin returning to the Wang clan alone. However, Xiao Wan didn't make any promises. Instead, she suggested to discuss it with the vice sect leaders. It would be best if the sect didn't object. Hearing Xiao Wan's words, Lu Qingyao said with a face full of confidence, "With our big miss, there will naturally be no problem." "It's up to you, Big Mississippi." Xiao Wan's identity wasn't a secret in the sword sect. Everyone knew that Xiao Wan was the daughter of sect master Xiao Chun and was very doted on. Therefore, if Xiao Wan asked, they wouldn't refuse Song Xing. Xiao Wan rolled her eyes at Lu Qingyao. Although Xiao Wan was Xiao Chen's daughter, Xiao Wan had always been unwilling to use her identity to make an issue out of things. Otherwise, there was no need for Xiao Wan to become a disciple of the sword sect. Wouldn't it be better for her to follow Xiao Chun directly? It was Xiao Wan's principle to never use his status to pressure others. But this time, Wang family was in such a big trouble, and Xiao Wan had no choice. As a good friend, he naturally couldn't let Wang Mengyao be in danger alone. After the three women agreed on the matter, they went to Song Xing. At the same time, Nangong Guan and Zhou Song were also in Song Xing's place. Song Xing was already having a headache over the Wang family's matter. When he heard that Wang Mengyao and Xiao Wan wanted to see him, he revealed a bitter smile. He looked at Nangong Guan and Zhou Song and said, "See, this old man already said that this matter wasn't that simple." Nangong Guan and Zhou Song, who had already guessed that Xiao Wan and Wang Menglin would return, shook their heads and smiled. Soon after, the three women walked into the hall and cupped their hands in greeting. Nangong Guan was the first to speak with a smile. When Nangong Guan saw Luan Luan, she smiled and said, "Luan Luan, you haven't come to see me for a long time. What? Have you forgotten, uncle?" Nangong Guan was also very fond of Xiao Wan. In response, Xiao Wan smiled and replied, "Luan Luan wouldn't dare. It's just that I've been a bit busy recently." In front of Song Xing and the other two, Xiao Wan wasn't nervous at all. After all, she was quite familiar with these people since she was young. Moreover, Song Xing and the others treated her very well, as if they were her elders. However, Lu Qingyao and Wang Menglin couldn't do the same. The two of them stood respectfully and didn't dare to interrupt. In the end, Song Xing took the initiative to bring up the matter and get to the point. After looking at Wang Menglin, who lowered her head and didn't say anything, Song Xing looked at Xiao Wan and asked with a smile, "Are you here for the Wang family's matter?" Song Xing had already guessed the purpose of Xiao Wan and the others' visit. Xiao Wan nodded in response. "Yes." Chapter 2663. There was no need to hide this matter, so Xiao Wan replied directly. Song Xing smiled, but his smile was somewhat bitter. Logically speaking, my sword sect shouldn't interfere with the Wang family's matters. After all, this is the Wang family's own matter. If my sword sect interferes with the internal affairs of other forces, how would the outside world view my sword sect? Song Xing spoke slowly. His words weren't unreasonable. After all, no matter how strong the sword sect was, there was still a limit to how much they could do. If they interfered with the internal affairs of other forces, it wouldn't be beneficial for the sword sect. The world would only think that the sword sect was bullying the weak and didn't have the demeanor and boldness of an overlord. Hearing Song Xing's words, Wang Menglin's eyes flashed with a trace of disappointment. Perhaps in her opinion, since Song Xing had said so, then this matter was impossible. At the very least, the sword sect wouldn't interfere. But speaking until here, Song Xing paused for a moment before continuing, "Forget it. Who asked you three brats to come personally? This time, I'll make an exception." Song Xing didn't refuse in the end. Wang Menglin was naturally overjoyed. Even Lu Qingyao and Xiao Wan heaved a sigh of relief. Since Song Xing had spoken, then the Wang family's matter shouldn't be difficult. With the sword sect support, the Wang family could be said to be a piece of cake. Looking at the excited expressions of the three girls, Song Xing shook his head and smiled. Don't be happy too early. This matter needs to be dealt with in a low-key manner. How about this? I'll let Elderly go with you, but don't make it public. Also, there won't be a next time. Elderly was one of Song Xing's trusted aides. His cultivation was at the peak of the End Realm. Ever since he joined the sword sect, he had been by Song Xing's side, helping Song Xing deal with the matters of the sword sect. He could be considered a powerful elder. Moreover, among the many elders in the sword sect, Elder Li's strength was ranked among the top. Song Xing directly asked Elder Li to follow Xiao Wan and the other two girls to a zhou. From this, one could see Song Xing's attitude towards this matter. Of course, this was mostly because of Xiao Wan. Otherwise, Wang Menglin and Lu Qingyao alone wouldn't be enough to make Song Xing make such a decision. Disciple thanks Deputy Sect Master. Hearing this, Wang Menglin gratefully bowed and thanked him. Hearing this, Song Xing indifferently replied, "All right, go and prepare. If you need anything, just tell Elderly. He will do his best to satisfy you." After speaking, Song Xing turned to Xiao Wan and said, "Go back and see your father. Tell him in case he worries." It was obvious that Song Xing's attitude toward Xiao Wan was different. If Song Xing treated Wang Menglin and Lu Qingyao like an upper echelon of the sect, then when he treated Xiao Wan, he was like a loving elder. Whether it was his words or his expression, it was filled with love. There was an obvious difference in attitude, but Wang Menglin and Lu Qingyao weren't jealous at all. Of course, there was nothing they could do. Xiao Wan had a good father. This was something they couldn't compare to. After successfully getting what they wanted, the three ladies turned and left. On the way, Xiao Wan said to Wang Menglin and Lu Qingyao, "Menglin, Qingyao, go and discuss the remaining matters with Elder Wang. Prepare to leave tomorrow morning. I have to go back now." Since Song Xing specially said that he was going back to see Xiao Chun, Xiao Wan naturally wouldn't refuse. Moreover, she should inform Xiao Chun about the matter of going to a zhou. Wang Menglin and Lu Qingyao didn't object to this. After the three of them said goodbye, Xiao Wan directly walked towards Xiao Chen's cave residence. "Sanjiu, Chinese network, how is it? Did you encounter any trouble recently?" At home, Xiao Chen looked at Xiao Wan and asked with concern. Although the father and daughter spent less time together after Xiao Wan became one of the 10 sword fanatics, Xiao Chen's concern for Xiao Wan didn't decrease at all. Even after Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao were born, Xiao Chun didn't have the slightest intention of looking down on Xiao Wan. After all, a daughter was a father's sweetheart. In response, Xiao Wan snuggled up to Xiao Chun and smiled. "No, but I have to go to Zhou tomorrow." "A Zhou?" Hearing this, Xiao Chun asked suspiciously. After telling Xiao Chun about the Wang family in detail, Xiao Chun didn't immediately agree after hearing the whole story. Instead, he fell into deep thought. Seeing this, Xiao Wan pretended to act coquettishly. Father, Minglan and I are good friends. With such a large matter happening to her family, I can't just stand by and watch. Xiao Wan was determined to stand up for Wang Mingling. Moreover, her father had been killed, so Xiao Wan understood Wang Mingling's feelings. Faced with his daughter acting coquettishly, Xiao Chun rubbed Xiao Wan's head with a smile and spoke with a loving expression. Even if it's like this, you don't need to personally go. The situation outside isn't good. Father is worried about you. Xiao Chun wasn't willing to let Xiao Wan personally go to Azhou because Xie Tian was still watching from the side. Before he completely killed that fellow, Xiao Chun wouldn't let down his guard and wouldn't use the safety of his family to gamble. According to Xiao Chen's thoughts, it would be fine to send an elder and Wang Minglin. There was no need to let Xiao Wan personally go. But Xiao Wan had directly rejected this. In the end, she even acted coquettishly, making Xiao Chun have no choice but to agree. His daughter had grown up and had her own friends. Standing up for her friends, Xiao Chun could understand this matter. Adding in Xiao Wan's coquettishness, Xiao Chun had no choice but to agree. Seeing Xiao Chun nod in the end, Xiao Wan happily promised Xiao Chun. She jumped up and down as she said, I know that father is the best to me. Good is good, but don't forget what you promised me. You have to send a letter back every day to let me and your mother know about your situation. Hearing this, Xiao Chun said with a pampering smile. For his children's growth, Xiao Chun wasn't willing to restrict them too much. In a situation where he could guarantee their safety, Xiao Chun also hoped that they could go out on their own and not live under his shadow. Xiao Wan naturally agreed to Xiao Chen's request. That night, the family had a meal together. Far away in Azhou, the Wang family's new patriarch, who was also the Wang family's branch family elder, was currently in his room, respectfully standing in front of a black-clothed man. This black-clothed man had an ordinary appearance, but from the aura he was emitting, it was obvious he was an Emperor Realm Master. In front of everyone, the Wang family patriarch was very humble and could even be said to be a little afraid. He stood there with his head lowered, not daring to look at this black-clothed man. Chapter 2664. The new Wang family patriarch, Wang Shanshi, stood respectfully in front of the man in black, not daring to even breathe loudly. As a branch family elder of the Wang family, Wang Shanshi was able to usurp the throne and even kill the Wang family patriarch. In the eyes of outsiders, Wang Shanshi had his own methods, or else he wouldn't have succeeded. The new Wang family patriarch, Wang Shanshi, stood respectfully in front of the man in black, not daring to even breathe loudly. As a branch family elder of the Wang family, Wang Shanshi was able to usurp the throne and even kill the Wang family patriarch. In the eyes of outsiders, Wang Shanshi was able to usurp the throne and even kill the Wang family patriarch. But the truth was that no one except Wang Shanshi knew that the reason he could usurp the throne was not because of his own ability, but because someone was helping him from behind. It was because of the people behind him that he was able to sit on the throne of the Wang family patriarch. Wang Shanshi was also very clear about the origins of these mysterious people. They were all Xie Tian's subordinates. That's right, they were Xie Tian's subordinates. About half a month ago, one of Xie Tian's Emperor Realm Masters secretly found Wang Shanshi and told him that they could help him become the Wang family patriarch and even help him kill the previous Wang family patriarch, Wang Minglin's father. In exchange, Wang Shanshi had to secretly submit to Xie Tian after taking control of the Wang family and become Xie Tian's spy in the Great Thousand World. Without such tempting conditions and an irresistible threat, Wang Shanshi had no right to refuse. If he refused, he would die. At worst, he could just find someone else. So, under the influence of various factors, Wang Shanshi agreed to the request of Xie Tian's subordinate and successfully became the Wang family patriarch. But Wang Shanshi was very clear that as the family head, he was just a puppet. Since Xie Tian's side could help him take the family head seat, naturally they could easily replace him. Wang Shanshi was very clear on this point. So, after becoming the Wang family patriarch, Wang Shanshi was even more respectful to Xie Tian's subordinates. Only what Wang Shanshi didn't know was that Xie Tian's side had another goal in helping him. Xie Tian didn't even put a Wang family in his eyes, so the words he said before were all lies. The reason why Xie Tian secretly sent people to meddle in the Wang family was because of Wang Menglin or Xiao Wan behind Wang Menglin. That's right, Xie Tian's real goal was Xiao Wan, and the Wang family was just bait to lure out Xiao Wan. Thinking of how to grasp Xiao Qin's weakness, after thinking about it, Xie Tian could only target Xiao Qin's family. After researching Xiao Qin's marriage, Xie Tian finally targeted Xiao Wan. First of all, Xiao Wan was Xiao Qin's daughter. Although she wasn't his biological daughter, Xiao Wan held a very high position in Xiao Qin's heart. She was no different from Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao. Secondly, Xiao Wan was the easiest to get, because Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, Qin Shu, Xiao Qing, and by Ru Yu, it was very hard to lure them out of the sword sect. But Xiao Wan was different. She was one of the 10 sword maniacs in the sword sect, so it was much easier to lure her out. It was because of this reason that Xie Tian chose Xiao Wan. The Wang family was just bait for Xie Tian. Wang Menglin and Xiao Wan were good friends. This matter wasn't a secret, and it was easy to find out. So, after learning this, Xie Tian had planned everything. With the Wang family appearing and her father being killed, it was impossible for Wang Menglin to remain indifferent. As for her good friend Xiao Wan, once she learned of this, there was a high chance that she would help. So, as long as he lured Xiao Wan to East State, Xie Tian would be able to capture her alive. At that time, with Xiao Wan in his hands, naturally Xiao Chun would be afraid of breaking the vases. In order to avoid the sword sect surveillance and not let the sword sect have any suspicions from beginning to end, Xie Tian didn't personally make a move. He stayed in his home the entire time to recover and only sent his subordinates to take care of this matter. Since Xie Tian didn't make a move, the sword sect naturally wouldn't suspect him. So, this matter, Xie Tian thought that he was very secretive. At least for now, the sword sect didn't have any suspicions at all. This entire plan was to capture Xiao Wan alive, and Xiao Wan didn't realize the danger at all. A silent night. After accompanying Xiao Chun and her mother for a night, the next morning, Xiao Wan went to the sword sect's teleportation formation to meet up with Wang Menglin, Lu Qingyao, and Elder Li. Heading to the Wang family this time, other than Xiao Wan and Wang Menglin, there was also Elder Li and another End Realm Elder, as well as 5 Dao Realm Deacons and over 10 elite disciples. There weren't many people, but it was more than enough to deal with the Wang family matter. Without making a big fuss, Xiao Wan and the others secretly left. Stepping into the teleportation formation, they disappeared and rushed towards East State. No one realized that this trip to East State wasn't as simple as it seemed on the surface. Maybe in their eyes, a small East State Wang family wasn't worth mentioning at all. Not to mention the fact that the sword sect had sent out 2 End Realm Elders, so the Wang family matter would be easily taken care of. Hidden threats. The seemingly calm East State was like a bloody mouth waiting for Xiao Wan and the others to jump in. Although Xie Tian didn't appear, the main matter was in the East State Wang family. Xie Tian had already arranged 2 Emperor Realm Masters, 5 End Realm Masters, and some helpers. It could be said that this force was enough to capture Xiao Wan alive. The danger was hidden in the dark, but Xiao Wan did not notice it at all. Based on the current situation, Xie Tian's plan was without a doubt a success. With this development, Xiao Wan would not be able to escape this calamity. He would not be able to escape East State at all and would be captured alive. However, there were exceptions to everything. Xiao Wan didn't have any vigilance, but that didn't mean that others didn't, especially her father, Xiao Chun. At this moment, in their residence, Xiao Chun looked at 100-Flower Fairy and the other girls. After thinking for a while, he said, 100-Flower, I think you should personally go and protect Wan Wan. I'm afraid that something will happen to her if she goes to East State at this time. Xiao Chun naturally didn't notice anything. The reason why he did this was because he was a father. His daughter was going to East State at such a dangerous time. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't worried. So, Xiao Chen wanted 100 Flower Fairy to personally go and protect Xiao Wan in secret. It could be considered a double insurance. If nothing happened on the way, then it would be for the best. At that time, 100 Flower Fairy wouldn't even need to show up. However, if something happened, 100 Flower Fairy would be able to help immediately. He didn't have any suspicions. He just wanted to protect his daughter. He was just thinking about his daughter from a father's point of view. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of this chapter. Chapter 2665. Xiao Chun asked 100 Flower Fairy to protect Xiao Wan in secret, and 100 Flower Fairy naturally wouldn't refuse. After all, she also treated Xiao Wan as her own daughter. Xinyuan Ling, Song Xing, and Long Qing were all busy with the matters of the sword sect. Xiao Chun indeed felt that there was no one he could rely on at the moment, so he could only choose 100 Flower Fairy to protect Xiao Wan. However, 100 Flower Fairy and the other girls were all Emperor Realm Masters now. As long as they didn't encounter an Ancestor Realm Master like Xie Tian, there shouldn't be a big problem for them to protect themselves, so Xiao Chen wasn't too worried. However, after hearing Xiao Chen's words, Gu Lingyao and Hong Xiu immediately said that they wanted to go with 100 Flower Fairy. These two little girls, after so many years, their personalities hadn't changed much. They were still as lively as before. After staying in the sword sect for so many days, the two girls were naturally extremely excited to be able to go out and volunteered. Looking at the two girls' excited expressions, Xiao Chun couldn't bear to refuse and finally nodded in agreement. However, he still warned the two girls to listen to 100 Flower Fairy's arrangements. In this regard, the two girls naturally patted their chests and promised. There was no time to lose. After settling the matter, 100 Flower Fairy and the other two girls quickly set off to catch up with Xiao Wan's group and secretly protect them. Seeing Gu Lingyao and Hong Xiu happily leaving behind 100 Flower Fairy, Qin Shiru helplessly smiled bitterly. Lingyao and Hong Xiu are still the same. They haven't changed at all. I think they're fine like this. As long as they're happy, I don't have any objections, Xiao Chun smiled in response and reached out to pull Qin Shiru into his arms. He didn't expect Gu Lingyao and Hong Xiu to change. After all, this was the real them. Moreover, the fact that the two girls were still the same as before made Xiao Chun feel sincerely proud. This proved that he had protected them well and fulfilled his responsibility as a husband. After 100 Flower Fairy and the other two left, Xiao Chun was completely relieved. With the three girls around, there shouldn't be any problems. Wang Minglin was still unaware that Xiao Chun had sent Fairy Baiwa and the other two girls to protect her personally. After leaving the Swords Gate, the group did not waste any time along the way and headed straight for Yi Province, as Wang Minglin was anxious to return home. After passing through the transmission array, Wang Minglin, Xiao Wan, and the others entered the territory. Nothing seemed to have changed in Yi Province. Nothing. However, they could still hear many people talking about the Wang family's matter when they were in the major cities. The matter of the Wang family was indeed a major event for the many factions and martial artists in Yi Province. Everyone was very curious as to what the Wang family was up to now. Wang Shanshi, who had already successfully usurped the throne, had not made any further moves. This was very strange. Xiao Luo's is on S, and Luan was BS Luo, and Luan's is Luan's you. Minglin, are you all right? Wang Minglin shook her head, indicating that she was fine. However, when she thought of Wang Shanshi's name, the killing intent in her heart couldn't help but erupt like a volcano. Wang Minglin did have some influence on Wang Shanshi. She remembered that he was an elder of the Wang family side branch. Of course, in the Wang family, it was impossible for a side branch disciple to become an elder. However, Wang Shanshi was talented since he was young, and he had some fortuitous encounters when he grew up. Therefore, he broke through the comprehension state and was promoted to an elder. A direct disciple only needed to be at the immortal emperor realm to become an elder. However, a side branch disciple could only become an elder after breaking through the comprehension state. This had always been the Wang family's rule. After Wang Shanshi became an elder of the Wang family, no one noticed anything strange about him. Therefore, no one expected Wang Shanshi to usurp the Wang family's throne and kill the patriarch. Wang Minglin didn't know what was going on in the Wang family. Ever since Wang Shanshi became the patriarch of the Wang family, he had cut off all contact with the outside world. Therefore, no one knew what was going on in the Wang family. This was what Wang Minglin was most worried about. Along the way, she had inquired about many things regarding the Wang family. However, she didn't find any useful information. The only thing she could do now was to personally enter the Wang family to find out what was going on. Now that they had entered Azhou, they weren't far from the Wang family's Spirit Return City. As a major force in Azhou, Spirit Return City was the Wang family's headquarters. The entire Spirit Return City was under the Wang family's control. They didn't directly enter Spirit Return City through the teleportation array because they didn't want to alert the enemy. They entered the city through the city gates and found an inn to stay in. At the same time, Elderly also sent people out to gather information about the Wang family. They should be able to obtain some useful information in Spirit Return City. That was indeed the case. Very quickly, the experts from the Sword Sect who went out to gather information returned. This time, they didn't disappoint and successfully obtained some useful information. The most important piece of information was that on the day Wang Shanshi tried to usurp the throne, there were a few mysterious experts who helped him. It was because of these mysterious experts that Wang Shanshi was able to successfully usurp the throne and kill the Wang family patriarch. Hearing this news, Wang Minglin said coldly, Wang Shanshi actually colluded with outsiders. He's asking for death. She had always found it strange how Wang Shanshi was able to kill her father. After all, her father was an End Realm expert. However, Wang Shanshi was only in the Enlightenment realm. Now, she finally understood that he had helpers. They found out that there were mysterious experts, but their identities were extremely mysterious. This was because when they attacked, they were all dressed in black. Even their faces couldn't be seen. However, based on Zhao Fu's guesses, these people were most likely from some large faction. They had secretly reached some sort of agreement with Wang Shanshi, which is why they had helped Wang Shanshi rise to the top. Most likely, Wang Shanshi had promised them some benefits. It seems like the Wang family's matter isn't just an internal conflict. There are other factions involved. After hearing this news, Lu Qingyao said calmly. Hearing this, Wang Minglin looked at Xiao Luan and asked, Senior sister, what should we do now? It was obvious that she treated Xiao Luan as her backbone. Xiao Luan thought for a moment before saying, no matter what the reason is, since it's hard to find information outside, let's take the initiative to go to the Wang family tomorrow. No matter who is behind Wang Shanshi, this time, we will definitely get justice for you, Minglin. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. In a chapter. Chapter 2666. The Wang family's matter was strange in every way, but Xiao Wan felt that with the strength of the Sword Sect, there was no need for them to care about this. Since the sect had already supported their actions, there was no need for them to make wild guesses here. They could just go straight to the Wang family. The Wang family's matter was strange in every way, but Xiao Wan felt that with the strength of the Sword Sect, there was no need for them to care about this. Since the sect had already supported their actions, there was no need for them to make wild guesses here. They could just go straight to the Wang family. Xiao Wan was not arrogant and brainless, but he had absolute confidence in the Sword Sect. Regarding this, Wang Minglin and the other women did not object and all nodded in agreement. With the status of the Sword Sect in the Great Thousand World, there was no need for them to act covertly. This was confidence that came from their strength. After agreeing on this matter, everyone began conserving their strength, but what they did not expect was that the moment they entered Spirit Return City, the Wang family had already received news of their arrival. At this moment, in Wang Shanshi's room, Xie Tian's subordinate was quietly listening to Wang Shanshi's report. He had been paying close attention to every movement in Spirit Return City, so the moment Xiao Wan appeared, Wang Shanshi naturally knew about it. After reporting the movements of Xiao Wan and the others, as well as their final destination, to this subordinate of Xie Tian's, Wang Shanshi cautiously asked, "Sir, what should we do next?" Wang Shanshi did not dare to make a decision on his own, so the Emperor Realm Master under Xie Tian's command simply said, "Wait for them to come. There's no need to do anything unnecessary." He was certain that Xiao Wan and the others were heading to the Wang family, so all they needed to do was capture Xiao Wan and the Wang family. This time, in order to ensure that nothing went wrong, Xie Tian's subordinates had specially made some adjustments to the Wang family's transmission array, allowing them to return directly to Xie Tian's residence. In other words, as long as Xiao Wan entered the Wang family, Xie Tian's subordinates could directly capture her and take her away. At that time, even if the sword sect reacted and wanted to rescue her, it would be too late. Moreover, Wang Shanshi had investigated the experts from the sword sect who came with Xiao Wan. There were only 2 End Realm Masters, and no Emperor Realm Masters were sent out. Like this, if Xie Tian's subordinates wanted to capture Xiao Wan, it would be a simple matter. Of course, the Wang family did not discover by Hua Fairy and the other 2 women hiding in the dark. After all, the Wang family did not have an Emperor Realm Master, and Bai Hua Fairy and the other 2 women were deliberately hiding their identities, so it was normal for them not to be able to detect them. They didn't realize that 100 Flower Fairy and the other 2 girls were hiding in the dark. This was the biggest problem right now. After a night of silence, the next morning, Xiao Wan and the others finished their cultivation and headed straight to the Wang family according to what they said last night. They had no intention of hiding their identities and whereabouts, swaggering to the front of the Wang family mansion. The 2 guards in charge of guarding the door were stunned when they saw Wang Minglin in the crowd. They then took the initiative to call out with a complicated expression, "Young lady." These 2 guards were old members of the Wang family, but they had already submitted to Wang Shanshi. Or rather, in the entire Wang family, anyone who did not submit to Wang Shanshi had already been killed. For low-level guards like them, they had no way of interfering in the upper echelons of the family. Since the final victor was Wang Shanshi, they had no other choice but to submit. However, seeing Wang Minglin appear here, the 2 of them were stunned and their hearts couldn't help but sink. Wang Minglin's purpose for coming here was definitely because of Wang Shanshi. Wang Shanshi had successfully usurped the throne and killed Wang Minglin's father. Wang Minglin was definitely here for revenge. Furthermore, Wang Minglin was one of the 10 sword fanatics in the sword sect. Even the Wang family couldn't underestimate her. Therefore, Wang Minglin's arrival seemed to have set off a bloodbath in the Wang family. Instinctively feeling that something was wrong, Wang Minglin ignored the 2 guards and walked straight into the Wang family mansion. Seeing this, the 2 guards hesitated for a while, but in the end, they didn't choose to stop her. Firstly, it was because of Wang Minglin's identity, and secondly, it was because of the Swords Gate's prestige. Even if the 2 guards of the Wang family had more guts, they wouldn't dare to do such a thing. Wang Minglin entered the Wang family mansion without any obstruction. Just as Wang Minglin entered the Wang family mansion, a group of Wang family higher-ups walked toward her. However, in Wang Minglin's eyes, these higher-ups were unfamiliar because they were basically the disciples of the Wang family's branch family. In other words, they were all newly promoted by Wang Shanshi to replace the previous Wang family's direct descendants. As for the previous Wang family's direct descendants, they were probably dead by now. Therefore, looking at these people, Wang Minglin's eyes instantly turned cold. She didn't know how many of these people participated in Wang Shanshi's usurpation of the Wang family, or if they submitted to Wang Shanshi after that. But no matter what, in Wang Minglin's heart, these people deserved to die. Wang Minglin's expression was ice cold. On the other hand, the higher-ups of the Wang family looked at each other. They were still afraid of Wang Minglin. Not only were they afraid of Wang Minglin's strength, but they were also afraid of the sword sect behind her. Compared to the sword sect, the Wang family was like an ant that could be easily crushed. Both sides stood opposite each other, and no one spoke. After a long while, Wang Shanshi's voice sounded. "Minglin, why didn't you tell me that you were coming home?" His voice sounded very gentle, as if an elder was concerned about his juniors. Along with the voice, Wang Shanshi strode out of the front hall with a faint smile on his face, as if nothing had happened. Wang Shanshi's acting skills were not bad, but Wang Minglin was completely different. The moment she saw Wang Shanshi, the killing intent in her eyes gushed out. It was like a sharp knife shooting towards Wang Shanshi. The killing intent in her eyes was almost tangible. Wang Minglin looked at Wang Shanshi coldly and said, "Wang Shanshi, what's the point of pretending now? Don't tell me you don't know why I'm here." Wang Minglin's heart was filled with disgust towards Wang Shanshi, who was still acting. But Wang Shanshi didn't care about this at all, as he said with a smile, "Minglin, this is a misunderstanding. Things aren't like what the outside world says. There are some things I want to explain to you, so at least give me a chance." Wang Shanshi's expression was very strange. Even though he knew why Wang Minglin was here, Wang Shanshi still had this kind of attitude. Of course, the others didn't know that the reason Wang Shanshi was like this was because of Xie Tian's subordinates' orders. They wanted Wang Shanshi to stall for time, begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. This chapter ends. Chapter 2667. In order to make sure nothing went wrong, Xie Tian's subordinates had already prepared the transfer array when Wang Minglin, Xiao Wan, and the others arrived in the Wang family. They wanted to bring Xiao Wan away in the shortest amount of time. In order to make sure nothing went wrong, Xie Tian's subordinates had already prepared the transfer array when Wang Minglin, Xiao Wan, and the others arrived in the Wang family. They wanted to bring Xiao Wan away in the shortest amount of time. After the failure last time, Xie Tian's side had learned quite a few lessons. They knew the importance of time, and there were many times when they failed because of time. Just like last time, if there was enough time last time, Xie Tian would have already killed Xiao Chun. So this time, Xie Tian's subordinates had learned their lesson from last time. They knew that they had to seize the time and not give the sword sect any more chances. Seeing the innocent smile on Wang Shanshi's face, Wang Minglin naturally didn't believe him. Was there a misunderstanding here? Everything was probably just Wang Shanshi's sophistry. But Wang Shanshi didn't hope that Wang Minglin would believe him. So after his voice fell, facing Wang Minglin's cold gaze, Wang Shanshi continued to speak with a smile. "Everyone, can you give me some time? At least give me a chance to explain." Wang Shanshi wanted to be given a chance to explain. These words were clearly not for Wang Minglin, but rather for Elder Li and the other two sword sect elders. Wang Shanshi was afraid of the sword sect and not Wang Minglin. If Wang Minglin wasn't one of the sword sect's 10 sword maniacs, Wang Shanshi wouldn't care about her at all. After all, even if Wang Minglin's talent was high, she was still young and her strength wasn't enough to threaten the entire Wang family. So, Wang Shanshi was truly afraid of the sword sect behind Wang Minglin. Hearing Wang Shanshi's words, Elder Li and Elder Li didn't immediately react. They looked over at Xiao Wan. This operation was led by Xiao Wan, so Elder Li and Elder Li had to consider Xiao Wan's attitude. Wang Shanshi's actions were indeed a little strange. But in the eyes of Xiao Wan and the others, it was because Wang Shanshi was afraid of the sword sect, or because he wanted to survive. They didn't sense any other danger. So, Xiao Wan didn't reject this and nodded. Since they wanted to solve the Wang family's problem, it was fine to listen to Wang Shanshi's sophistry. Seeing that Xiao Wan had agreed, Elder Li and Elder Li naturally wouldn't refuse. After that, Wang Shanshi personally led everyone into the main hall. Moreover, in order to express his sincerity, Wang Shanshi even ordered the upper echelons of the Wang family to leave. In the main hall, only Wang Shanshi, Xiao Wan, and the others were left. Wang Shanshi faced Xiao Wan and the others alone to show his sincerity. This action also dispelled some of the people's wariness. After all, Wang Shanshi was alone, so they weren't afraid that he would suddenly attack. Moreover, with Elder Li and Elder Li, two End Realm experts present, what could Wang Shanshi, who was only in the Enlightenment Realm, do? Everyone took their seats while Wang Shanshi stood in the middle of the main hall. As the head of the Wang clan, he did not even have a seat at this moment. However, Wang Shanshi did not seem to care too much about this. His expression was calm as he looked at Elder Li and the other elder and slowly said, according to Wang Shanshi, the death of Wang Menglin's father had nothing to do with him. It was all because a group of mysterious experts suddenly barged into the Wang family. Wang Menglin's father fought against this group of mysterious experts in order to protect his family. In the end, he was killed. In the end, due to the death of Wang Menglin's father, Wang Shanshi was elected as the new patriarch of the Wang family. As a result, the matter of Wang Menglin's father had nothing to do with Wang Shanshi. During this period of time, Wang Shanshi had been searching for the whereabouts of the mysterious experts. Wang Menglin naturally didn't believe Wang Shanshi's words. Before he could finish, Wang Menglin coldly interrupted him. Enough, Wang Shanshi. How long are you going to act? Do you think we are all fools? Although Wang Shanshi's explanation didn't seem to have any problems at first, as long as one thought about it carefully, one would find that there were many loopholes in it, and Wang Shanshi couldn't justify these loopholes at all. Therefore, unless one was a fool, no one would believe Wang Shanshi's explanation. It was not only Wang Menglin. Even Xiao Wan, Elder Li, and the others looked at Wang Shanshi coldly. It was obvious that they did not believe what he had just said. Was Wang Shanshi desperately trying to find a doctor, or was he treating everyone here as fools? No matter what, Xiao Wan and the others felt a sense of humiliation. Did Wang Shanshi think that the people of the sword sect were so easily deceived? Even if he wanted to make up a lie, he should have thought about it carefully and not just spouted nonsense. They thought that Wang Shanshi had some tricks up his sleeves, but now it seemed that this fellow was simply seeking death. However, faced with everyone's cold gazes, Wang Shanshi didn't panic at all. Instead, he revealed a faint smile. He knew that his lie was full of loopholes. Moreover, from the beginning to the end, Wang Shanshi never thought that Xiao Wan and the others would believe him. However, at this moment, Wang Shanshi didn't panic at all. The reason was that Xie Tian's subordinates were already prepared. They were outside the main hall, ready to attack at any time. From the beginning, Wang Shanshi never thought of deceiving the sword sect because he couldn't deceive them at all. The reason why he did all this wasn't to stall for time. Now that the time was up, Wang Shanshi naturally didn't need to hide anything. With a faint smile, Wang Shanshi looked at Elder Li and the others and said with contempt, I naturally know that I can't deceive you, but I never thought of deceiving you. Wang Menglin, since you want to know the truth, why don't I tell you? That's right, I killed your father, but so what? Wang Shanshi's sudden change puzzled Xiao Wan, but after Wang Menglin heard this, she couldn't restrain her anger. She immediately stood up and prepared to attack Wang Shanshi. Wang Menglin couldn't suppress the anger in her heart and directly attacked. However, Wang Shanshi didn't have any intention of dodging. He didn't even have a trace of panic on his face. He just said with a smile, Wang Menglin, you want to kill me? Unfortunately, you're destined to not be able to kill me. Also, the masters of the sword sect, do you really think that the sword sect is the strongest in the Great Thousand World? Wang Shanshi's words confused everyone, but soon, after Wang Shanshi finished speaking, more than 10 black-clothed men appeared in the main hall. Among them, the leaders were 2 Emperor Realm Masters. When these people appeared, the surrounding space was immediately sealed. Seeing this, Xiao Wan and the others' faces sank. Please add, please vote, please recommend. End of this chapter. Chapter 2668. The appearance of more than 10 black-clothed men made the faces of Xiao Wan and the others sink, especially when they found out that the 2 leaders were Emperor Realm Masters. Everyone's faces turned even uglier. Until now, how could they not know that everything that happened before was just an act by Wang Shanshi? From the beginning to the end, he had never thought of defending himself. In this way, all of Wang Shanshi's strange actions could be explained. However, it was obviously not the time to think about this. The appearance of more than 10 black-clothed men made everyone's heart sink to the bottom. 2 Emperor Realm Masters, 2 End Realm Masters, and several Comprehension Realm and Immortal Emperor Realm Cultivators. This lineup was obviously far stronger than Xiao Wan and the others. Moreover, what was the purpose of these black-clothed men? Could it be that they were only here to protect the Wang family? These people should be the mysterious cultivators that were rumored to be the ones behind Wang Shanshi. But what was their purpose? In an instant, Xiao Wan guessed a possibility. These black-clothed men were very powerful. In the current Great Thousand World, there was only one person who had such strength, and that was Xie Tian. In this way, the identity of these black-clothed men could not be clearer. They were all Xie Tian's subordinates. Since they were Xie Tian's subordinates, their purpose was self-evident. They were here for Xiao Wan. The Wang family was just a bait at this time. Their purpose was to lure Xiao Wan out. The real target was Xiao Wan. The Wang family was not important to Xie Tian. They were dispensable. Thinking of this, Xiao Wan immediately reacted. She had fallen into a trap. Moreover, it seemed that Xie Tian's subordinates had come prepared this time. Since Xiao Wan had guessed this, Elder Li and the others had naturally guessed it too. After all, the identity of these black-clothed men was not difficult to guess. It could even be said that it was self-evident. Therefore, Elder Li slowly moved to Xiao Wan's side and transmitted his voice. "Young miss, you go first. We will think of a way to delay them." The target of these black-clothed men was Xiao Wan. Elder Li and the others were certainly not willing to let Xiao Wan fall into Xie Tian's hands. Therefore, even if they were no match for Xie Tian, they had at least fight to the death to buy time for Xiao Wan to escape. However, just as Elder Li's transmission fell, one of the two Emperor Realm Masters in the lead spoke. "It's too late to escape now. Capture her and kill the others." Saying this, the Emperor Realm Master pointed his finger at Xiao Wan. Then, he disappeared from where he was in an instant and attacked Elder Li himself. Without wasting any time, these black-clothed men were extremely cautious this time. Although it seemed like they were almost certain to succeed in the current situation, they couldn't afford to be careless before they captured Xiao Wan alive and brought him back. The two Emperor Realm Masters took the lead. One of them attacked Elder Li while the other went straight for Xiao Wan. At the same time, a terrifying pressure suppressed Xiao Wan, making it impossible for her to escape. Xiao Wan's talent was indeed good, but it was still far from enough to deal with an Emperor Realm Master. After all, Xiao Wan's cultivation was only at the perfection stage of the comprehension realm. The gap between her and an Emperor Realm Master was too big. There was no comparison at all. Looking at this Emperor Realm Master rushing towards him, Xiao Wan found that he had no strength to fight back at all. She knew very well what would happen if she fell into Xie Tian's hands. She also knew what kind of impact it would have on the Sword Sect and her father. Xiao Wan had even made up her mind that even if she had to commit suicide, she could not be captured by Xie Tian. Otherwise, her father would definitely be timid and be played by Xie Tian. She could not ruin her father's plans for her. Just as Xiao Wan was about to commit suicide, the sealed space was directly blasted open from the outside. Then, the entire main hall was directly overturned by a violent force. At the same time, Bai Hua Fairy's voice suddenly sounded in front of Xiao Wan. She sent out a palm strike and collided with the Emperor Realm Master, successfully saving Xiao Wan. Second Mother. Seeing Bai Hua Fairy appear, Xiao Wan was immediately happy. She did not expect her second mother to be following her. Moreover, other than Bai Hua Fairy, Gu Lingyao and Hong Xiu also appeared. They stood in front of everyone and looked coldly at the black-clothed people present. Third Mother, Fifth Mother, Xiao Wan shouted. They were originally in despair, but at the last moment Bai Hua Fairy, Gu Lingyao, and Hong Xiu actually appeared. Not only was Xiao Wan excited, even Elder Li and the others felt like they had survived a disaster. However, they still hurriedly saluted. "Greetings, madams." Although Bai Hua Fairy and the other women usually did not care about the sword sect's matters and rarely showed their faces in public, their status in the sword sect was very high. Not to mention Elder Li and the other elders. Even vice sect masters like Song Xing were respectful when facing Bai Hua Fairy and the other women. They did not dare to overstep their boundaries. In this regard, Bai Hua Fairy said to Xiao Wan with a smile, Your father was worried about you and specially sent us to secretly follow you. It seems like your father really guessed it. Xiao Chun specially sent second mother and the others to protect her. Xiao Wan was moved by this and, at the same time, felt very lucky. Fortunately, her father had a backup plan, otherwise she would really be in danger. Compared to Xiao Wan and the others who had survived a disaster, Xietian's subordinates had gloomy expressions. They were about to succeed and capture Xiao Wan in the blink of an eye. Then, even if the sword sex people arrived, what could they do? However, at the last moment, it was ruined by Bai Hua Fairy and the other women. Last time it was like this, and this time it was the same. Every time it was at the most crucial moment, it would be ruined by the sword sect. They stared coldly at Bai Hua Fairy and the other two women. Although the three newcomers were women, these black-clothed men didn't dare to underestimate them, because it wasn't difficult to tell from the auras of Bai Hua Fairy and the other two women that they were all Emperor Realm Masters, and their combat strength was definitely not weak. Don't think that Bai Hua Fairy and the other women were weak or even thought that they were flower vases just because they rarely fought. On the contrary, Bai Hua Fairy and the other women's talents were also top-notch. They were not any weaker than Dao Ju and the others. The reason why they rarely fought was all because of Xiao Chun. However, no one could think that these women were flower vases just because of this and did not have any strength. If they thought this, then they would be gravely mistaken. Begging for a collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of this chapter. Chapter 2669. Rarely making a move was not because they were weak, but rather because of their status. As Xiao Chen's wives, 100 Flower Fairy and the others rarely had the chance to personally make a move. Moreover, with Xiao Chen's personality, he would not allow the girls to fall into danger. However, from beginning to end, Xiao Chen was very concerned about the girls' cultivation. Moreover, he gave the girls the best cultivation resources and cultivation conditions. With such good cultivation conditions, how could the girls' battle strength be weak? With a calm expression and a faint smile on her face as she looked at the black-clothed people in front of her, 100 Flower Fairy said in a mocking voice, "It seems like Xietian still hasn't given up on his evil intentions." Facing 100 Flower Fairy and the other two, the 10 Xietian subordinates all had serious expressions. Wang Shanshi was even more stunned on the spot. To be honest, when he first saw 100 Flower Fairy and the other two, Wang Shanshi was attracted by the beauty of the three girls. Not to mention 100 Flower Fairy's graceful aura. Even beautiful red and Gu Lingyao's youthful beauty moved Wang Shanshi's heart. There were actually such beautiful women in this world. However, after knowing the identities of the three girls, Wang Shanshi completely gave up on this idea. These three girls were actually the head of the sword sect, Xiao Chen's wives. In the boundless world, there were many rumors about Xiao Chen's wives. There were even people who said that Xiao Chen's 5 wives were the most beautiful women in the boundless world. Now it seemed like the rumors were true. However, now was not the time to admire the appearance of the three girls. Wang Shanshi was very clear that his current situation and position was on the opposite side of the sword sect. As for 100 Flower Fairy and the other two girls, they did not care about Wang Shanshi at all. In the eyes of the three girls, a small character like Wang Shanshi could not enter their eyes, so they directly looked down on him. "Big Sister 100 Flower, why are you wasting words with them? Let's kill them first." As soon as 100 Flower Fairy finished speaking, Beautiful Red spoke up. It was a good thing the three of them came this time. Otherwise, Xiao Wan would have been doomed. Towards this, Beautiful Red Dress naturally had killing intent in her heart. Moreover, Beautiful Red Dress did not have a single good impression of Xietian's people, so naturally she would kill them if she could. Hearing Hong Xiu's words, Flower Fairy did not refuse, and said softly, "Then let's kill him." Saying so, Bai Hua Fairy took a step forward, her figure floating as she attacked the Emperor Realm Master in front of her. Bai Hua Fairy's movements were very gentle, like petals being blown by a gentle breeze. Although she was fighting, her every move was extremely beautiful, and it was a pleasure to watch. However, the Emperor Realm Master facing Hundred Flower Fairy did not have the slightest bit of appreciation at this moment, because he felt a huge threat from her. A seemingly gentle palm came out, surrounded by a faint pink light that condensed into petals. Along with Hundred Flower Fairy's attack, the entire space was surrounded by petals. A rich floral fragrance, petals dancing in the air, everything looked so beautiful. But under this beauty, there was a hidden danger. The slightest bit of carelessness could lead to eternal damnation. The incomparably beautiful scene from a second ago quickly changed. The petals that filled the sky instantly turned into sharp blades, attacking Xiaotian's subordinates from all directions. Of course, Wang Shanshi was also included. Facing Hundred Flower Fairy's attack, with Wang Shanshi's cultivation, he did not have much power to fight back. Fortunately, Xiao Wan spoke up in time. "Second mother, spare Wang Shanshi's life," Wu Jian said. Xiao Wan naturally did not want to save Wang Shanshi. Instead, he wanted to hand Wang Shanshi over to Wang Menglin to deal with. Hearing this, Flower Fairy did not target Wang Shanshi anymore. The petals in the sky did not seem to have any intention of harming Wang Shanshi. Seeing this, Wang Menglin on the side whispered to Xiao Wan, "Thank you." Wang Menglin was indeed very grateful to Xiao Wan this time. In this matter, Xiao Wan had helped her. Wang Menglin had always seen it, but Xiao Wan did not care about it. Under the beauty, there was infinite danger. With Hundred Flower Fairy's attack, Hong Xiao and Gu Lingyao naturally did not stand back and helped Xietian's subordinates attack. The three girls were outnumbered, but out of everyone's expectations, in just a single exchange, the three girls had an overwhelming advantage. Even the two Emperor Realm Masters under Xietian's command had a clear difference in strength when facing Hundred Flower Fairy and the other two girls. These two Emperor Realm Masters' cultivations were only at the early Emperor Realm. In terms of cultivation, they could not compare to Hundred Flower Fairy and the other two girls, not to mention the difference in combat strength. So, with the three of them dealing with more than 10 of Xietian's subordinates, Hundred Flower Fairy and the others did not feel much pressure. This kind of strength also shocked Elder Li, Lu Qingyao, and Wang Menglin. Although the people present were all masters of the sword sect, other than Xiao Wan, the others had never seen Hundred Flower Fairy and the other girls fight, let alone understand their strength. Seeing the Hundred Flower Fairy's group of three easily suppress Xietian's subordinates, everyone finally realized that their own madams were actually this strong. Normally, they did not reveal their strength, but their strength was not weaker than the Vice Sect Masters. Compared to the Vice Sect Masters, they were not weaker. Everyone was shocked, but Xietian's subordinates were complaining. After all, they were directly facing Hundred Flower Fairy and the other two girls, so they had to bear the pressure brought by the three girls. They thought that they could still fight, but after truly fighting, Xietian's subordinates realized that the three beautiful girls in front of them were simply terrifyingly strong. Even if they were all Emperor Realm Masters, only after truly fighting did they realize that the gap between them was so large. It could be said that there was a qualitative difference. Damn it! One of the Emperor Realm Masters cursed with a gloomy face when facing Hundred Flower Fairy's attack. At the same time, he ignored the attacks of the petals around him and sent a punch at Hundred Flower Fairy, wanting to break her attack. However, Hundred Flower Fairy only gave a faint smile in response. "You are not my opponent, and you want to use brute force to break my attack. Don't you think it's too laughable?" As she spoke, a pink flower formed from spirit energy appeared in front of Baihua Fairy, and the Emperor Realm Master's attack landed heavily on the flower. It was not able to destroy the flower, let alone injure Hundred Flower Fairy. It could be said that there was no need to do anything as Hundred Flower Fairy easily blocked this Emperor Realm Master's full-strength attack. Moreover, that pink flower did not change at all after receiving this person's punch. It was still as perfect as before. Chapter 2670. This head-on clash directly illustrated the gap between the two sides. This Emperor Realm Master's all-out attack did not even pose a threat to Bai Hua Fairy, let alone break through her defenses. This head-on clash directly illustrated the gap between the two sides. This Emperor Realm Master's all-out attack did not even pose a threat to Bai Hua Fairy, let alone break through her defenses. After blocking this Emperor Realm Master's all-out attack, Bai Hua Fairy gently stretched out her right hand and slowly clenched it. In an instant, the surrounding petals surrounded this Emperor Realm Master and quickly formed a vortex. Countless petals enveloped the Emperor Realm Master and quickly spun, forming a vortex. The Emperor Realm Master, who was at the center of the vortex, showed a trace of panic on his face as he angrily tried to break free from the encirclement of the petals. Unfortunately, this Emperor Realm Master's attack did not have much effect on these petals. There were too many petals, and every time he attacked, it was like a stone sinking into the sea. As the petals spun at high speed, countless wounds quickly appeared on this Emperor Realm Master's body. At the same time, his clothes were instantly dyed red with blood. These petals were like countless sword chi, trying to tear this Emperor Realm Master into pieces. They were both Emperor Realm Masters, but the gap between the two was so huge. Wang Minglin, Lu Qingyao, and the others, who were standing aside and witnessing the battle with their own eyes, were so shocked that they couldn't close their mouths. They were both Emperor Realm Masters, but why was the gap so huge, so strong? Lu Qingyao opened her mouth, and, in the end, could only think of these two words to describe everything in front of her. Unable to fight back, and this was the result of Bai Hua Fairy holding back. Otherwise, this Emperor Realm Master would not have been able to hold on until now. Moreover, even in the end, Bai Hua Fairy left him with a single breath, probably because she wanted to ask something from him. The petals scattered, and this Emperor Realm Master fell to the ground covered in blood. It was obvious that he no longer had the slightest ability to fight and only had a single breath left. Bai Hua Fairy did not pay attention to this and continued to attack the others. Bai Hua Fairy did not hold back at all against these people. After all, if she wanted to get some information, one person was enough, and the rest could be killed directly. Bai Hua Fairy took the lead in dealing with one of the Emperor Realm Masters, while on the other side, Gu Lingyao was fighting another Emperor Realm Master. However, it was said that Gu Lingyao had the absolute advantage, suppressing this Emperor Realm Master. If Bai Hua Fairy's attacks were described as peerlessly beautiful, then Gu Lingyao was like a cheerful spirit, extremely fast. The Emperor Realm Master she was fighting was unable to keep up with Gu Lingyao's movements. The speed displayed by Gu Lingyao was almost beyond the level of an Emperor Realm Master, comparable to a half-step Ancestor Realm existence. Moreover, no one knew what kind of movement martial skill Gu Lingyao cultivated, or perhaps she created it herself. While her speed was extremely fast, her figure was also erratic, making it difficult for others to catch her. Up until now, the Emperor Realm Cultivator had not been able to touch the corner of Gu Lingyao's clothes, not even once. In such a situation, the outcome was already decided. After seeing Bai Hua Fairy take down an Emperor Realm Master, Gu Lingyao did not waste any more time and quickly defeated this Emperor Realm Master. She did not kill him directly, but left him with a single breath, but he had completely lost the ability to fight. At this point, the two Emperor Realm Masters had been defeated one after another, and the remaining people were not enough in front of Bai Hua Fairy and the other two. They were quickly killed. The battle did not last long, and this battle undoubtedly fully demonstrated the strength of Bai Hua Fairy and the other two. It was far from what an ordinary Emperor Realm Master could compare to. At the end of the battle, Wang Shanshi, who was not injured at all, felt his legs go soft. He could not stand at all and fell directly to the ground. Looking at the corpses all over the ground, Wang Shanshi felt as if he could already see what was waiting for him. But for the time being, Bai Hua Fairy and the other two women did not have the mood to care about Wang Shanshi. After the battle ended, Elderly respectfully came to Bai Hua Xia and the other two women and asked carefully, "Madam, what should we do next?" Since Bai Hua Fairy and the other two women were here in person, they naturally had to listen to their orders. Hearing this, Bai Hua Fairy said indifferently, "Let's see if we can get anything out of these two first." Saying so, Bai Hua Fairy glanced indifferently at the two Emperor Realm Masters. They still had a breath left, but they could not even move. Hearing this, Elderly nodded and quickly led people to start asking questions. Gu Lingyao and Hong Xiu did not have the mood to care about what happened next. The two women looked around in boredom, and in the end, they took the initiative to come to Xiao Wan and said with a faint smile on their faces, "Luan, I told you that it was dangerous outside recently, but you didn't listen. Third madam, fifth madam, I—" Hearing this, Xiao Wan lowered her head, not knowing what to say. This time, he had indeed been careless. Earlier, Xiao Chun had also reminded him not to come personally, but he did not listen in the end. Now it seemed that his father's worry was not without reason. Fortunately, Second Mother and the others had arrived in time, and only then did they resolve this crisis. Seeing Xiao Wan's expression as if she had done something wrong, Hong Xiu and Gu Lingyao did not continue to tease her. Although the two of them could be considered Xiao Wan's mother, with the two women's personalities, they were more like sisters when standing next to Xiao Wan. However, Lu Qingyao and Wang Minglin could not be like this. Facing Gu Lingyao and Hong Xiu, the two women were very nervous and did not even dare to look directly at Gu Lingyao and Hong Xiu. There was nothing they could do. Although they were the 10 sword maniacs of the sword sect and had a noble status among the many disciples of the sword sect, they still could not be compared to Gu Lingyao and Hong Xiu. The difference in status between the two sides was very big. Not to mention them, even vice sect masters like Song Xing would not dare to be too casual when facing Gu Lingyao and Hong Xiu. The next matter was naturally decided by 100 Flower Fairy. Gu Lingyao and Hong Xiu were not interested in these matters. Seeing that there was no more excitement, the two women seemed to have nothing to do. On the other side, after Elder Li and his people used many methods to interrogate the two Emperor Realm Masters, they did not get any useful answers. The two of them did not answer any of Elder Li's questions at all. This was not strange. After Xie Tian used a special method to increase their cultivation, they had long become loyal to Xie Tian. Therefore, it was almost impossible for them to betray Xie Tian. They would rather die than betray Xie Tian. Please add, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 2671. These two Emperor Realm Masters were unwilling to divulge any information about Xie Tian, but 100 Flower Fairy simply said, "Kill them." The two of them were loyal to Xie Tian, and it seemed that it would be difficult to get anything out of them even if they continued to ask. As such, the two of them were naturally useless, so it was better to just kill them. Hearing this, Elder Li did not hesitate. After nodding, he directly killed the two of them. The two were on their last breaths were killed by Elder Li without any ability to resist. After everything was over, 100 Flower Fairy came to Xiao Wan's side. She first smiled at Xiao Wan before turning her gaze to Wang Minglin. Being stared at by 100 Flower Fairy, Wang Minglin felt her body stiffen. She couldn't say anything, but she felt as if she had been immobilized on the spot. At the same time, her heart was beating very fast. She was very nervous, even more nervous than when she faced Gu Lingyao and Hong Xiu. It couldn't be helped, 100 Flower Fairy's aura was indeed much stronger than Gu Lingyao and Hong Xiu's. That graceful and noble temperament would probably make any woman feel ashamed of their inferiority. Seeing Wang Minglin's nervousness, 100 Flower Fairy quickly said in a gentle voice, "There's no need to be like this. You can decide on the Wang family's matters yourself." 100 Flower Fairy did not care about the Wang family's matters, so she simply let Wang Minglin make the decision herself. Of course, this was also because of Xiao Wan's face. If Wang Minglin was not Xiao Wan's good friend, 100 Flower Fairy probably would not have said anything to her. After all, although they were the 10 sword freaks, they were not important enough for 100 Flower Fairy to pay attention to. Especially now that the sword sect had annexed the Moon Palace, Dan Valley, talisman sect, and saber sect, the status of the 10 sword freaks had been greatly impacted. Putting everything else aside, just the strength of the 10 great saber disciples of the saber sect and the 10 great moonlight disciples of the lunar palace were almost comparable to the 10 great sword fanatic disciples. In other words, the status of the 10 great sword fanatic disciples had indeed declined after the sword sect annexed these few Ling Tian sects. Moreover, as Xiao Qin's wife, Flower Fairy naturally knew some of the core matters of the sword sect. She also knew that Xiao Qin had been thinking about reorganizing the internal structure of the sword sect recently. After all, after annexing the other Ling Tian sects, the sword sect would definitely have to make some changes. It was impossible for them to continue using the previous structure. Her attitude towards Wang Menglin was amiable, but she also maintained a certain distance from her. After saying that, 100 Flower Fairy did not say anything else and retreated to the side, obviously leaving the decision to Wang Menglin. Hearing 100 Flower Fairy's words, Wang Menglin was grateful. At the same time, her gaze fell on Wang Shanshi again. At this moment, Wang Shanshi, who had lost his last pillar of support, was no longer as calm as before. His face was pale as a sheet as he fell to the ground, looking extremely miserable. Wang Menglin stared coldly at Wang Shanshi as she walked towards him step by step. At this moment, Wang Shanshi spoke with a sorrowful expression on his face. "Miss, I was forced to do it. They forced me to do it. They were the ones who killed the family head. It has nothing to do with me." Wang Shanshi tried his best to defend himself. From a certain perspective, he was indeed forced. However, even so, he still could not deny that he had something to do with the death of Wang Menglin's father. Looking at the grief-stricken Wang Shanshi, Wang Menglin said coldly, "Where is my father's body? Also, where are the direct disciples?" Carefree Chinese network Wang Menglin wanted to see her father one last time. However, after hearing her words, Wang Shanshi was stunned. Looking at his expression, it was obvious that he wanted to say something but stopped himself. Looking at Wang Shanshi's expression, the coldness in Wang Menglin's eyes intensified. Then, accompanied by Elder Li and the rest, Wang Menglin, Wang Shanshi, and the rest went to the Wang family's dungeon. Some of the direct disciples were still locked up in the dungeon. Without interfering with the Wang family's affairs, 100 Flower Fairy, the 3 ladies, and Xiao Luan found a small courtyard with good scenery to settle down temporarily. As for the rest, they controlled the Wang family members and followed Wang Menglin. The 4 of them sat in the courtyard. 100 Flower Fairy said to Xiao Luan with a reproachful expression, "Luan, you were too impulsive this time. You almost got into trouble. This time, it was indeed very dangerous. If not for Xiao Qin's worry and specially ordered the 3 ladies to protect her secretly, the consequences would be unimaginable." Faced with 100 Flower Fairy's reproach, Xiao Wan naturally lowered her head and admitted her mistake. She also knew that she had been too impulsive this time and didn't realize the potential danger. 100 Flower Fairy's reproach was also because she was worried about Xiao Wan's safety. But fortunately, the final result was good and nothing happened. After saying a few words, 100 Flower Fairy also sent a message to Xiao Qin in the sword sect. After hearing the news, Xiao Qin, who was far away in the sword gate, was also shocked for nothing. At the same time, he rejoiced. However, when he thought about how Xie Tian had been secretly targeting him, Xiao Qin's face turned completely dark. The injuries on his body were no longer a problem, and the next step was to go into closed-door cultivation to solve the problem of his left arm. This wasn't a big problem, and there was nothing to worry about. Right now, Xiao Qin was thinking of how to take care of Xie Tian as soon as possible. Immediately, Xiao Qin called Xin Yuanling over to discuss how to deal with Xie Tian. Xie Tian was a thorn in Xiao Qin's side, so taking care of him as soon as possible was the best choice. Moreover, as the saying goes, one shouldn't be afraid of a thief stealing, but one should be afraid of a thief thinking about it. There is always a person secretly thinking about how to harm you. No one would like this feeling. Adding in the matter of Xiao Wan, Xiao Qin couldn't wait any longer. who knew what kind of scheme Xietian would use this time and who would make a move against the people by his side. After Xianyuan Ling arrived, Xiao Chun gave him a simple explanation of what happened. Hearing this, Xianyuan Ling thought for a bit before saying, "You want to directly make a move?" Xiao Chen's goal seemed to be to directly make a move against Xietian, but hearing this, Xiao Chen shook his head and said, "Wait until I've completely recovered before making a move. However, I'm guessing that after Xietian learns of his failure, he will hide himself again. With the people we've placed around him, it will be hard to hide from Xietian. So, I want Big Brother to increase the surveillance on Xietian. If necessary, you can have Master personally make a move to secretly monitor Xietian." They couldn't make a move for now, but they couldn't let Xietian run away. Otherwise, it would take a lot of effort to find him in the future. So, Xiao Chen's current request was to increase the surveillance on Xietian. If necessary, he wouldn't hesitate to have Jun Wuya personally make a move. Chapter 2672. Now is not the time to make a move against Xietian, but whether it was Xietian or the Sword Sect, they both knew that there was a difference in strength between them, and Xietian did not have a large chance of winning. So, after failing to plot against Xiaowan, Xietian might choose to hide and wait for an opportunity to make a move. Now is not the time to make a move against Xietian, but whether it was Xietian or the Sword Sect, they both knew that there was a difference in strength between them, and Xietian did not have a large chance of winning. So, after failing to plot against Xiaowan, Xietian might choose to hide and wait for an opportunity to make a move. After all, if he fought head-on, knowing that he did not have a large chance of winning, Xietian would not fight head-on. Moreover, this was Xietian's usual method, and Xiao Chun was very familiar with it. So, the current Xiao Chun was not worried about how to eliminate Xietian, but rather how to prevent Xietian from escaping, making it hard for the Sword Sect to find him. For this, Xiao Chun did not hesitate to have Jun Wuya personally monitor Xietian. Hearing this, Xianyuan Ling gave a strong nod in response. Now is not the time to make a move against Xietian, but they couldn't let Xietian escape and hide. After discussing this matter, Xianyuan Ling quickly stood up and left, following Xiao Chen's orders. He had to strengthen his surveillance of Xietian. On the other side, after hearing that the Wang family's matter had failed, Xietian did not have much of an expression. He sat in the main seat, and after hearing the report from the people below, Xietian softly said, "Understood." After everyone left, and there was only Xietian left in the hall, Xietian's eyes turned ice cold. This time's operation against Xiaowan, Xietian thought that it was very precise, but he never thought that it would still fail in the end. The reason for the failure was not Xietian's own problem, but rather Xiao Chun being too cautious. Who would have thought that Xiao Chun would secretly have the 100-flower fairy and the other two girls protect Xiaowan? It was not exaggerated to say that if it wasn't for the appearance of the 100-flower fairy and the other two girls, Xietian's operation this time would not have failed. Sitting in the main hall with cold eyes, Xietian knew that the following situation would only be worse for him. Xiao Chen's injuries should be almost healed, and as for his severed left arm, it was not a difficult matter for Xiao Chun. He only needed one closed-door cultivation and it would be healed. If an Ancestor Realm expert wanted to regenerate a limb, then it was a simple matter. Once Xiao Chen's was healed, Xietian's first target would be him. But facing Xiao Chun, Xietian did not have any chance of winning. Not to mention that Xiao Chen's cultivation had already broken through to the small success stage of the Ancestor Realm, which was a small realm higher than his own. Like this, with the difference in cultivation, it was even more impossible for him to be Xiao Chen's match. He definitely wasn't a match in a head-on fight, and his plan had failed again and again. Not to mention that the Sword Sect had already taken care of the Ling Tian sects and had the ability to deal with him. Like this, Xietian was in a bit of a difficult situation. Like Xiao Chun had guessed, Xietian quickly thought of retreating and hiding, waiting for an opportunity. After all, he wasn't a match in a head-on fight, so he could only use this method. As for contacting those old fellows from the Dark Era, Xietian did not even think about it. It was not because of any other reason, but rather because Xie Tian could not contact them at all. Those old fellows from the Dark Era helping him, Xie Tian knew that they had a goal. Now that he was in the boundless world, those old fellows should know about it. But since they did not make a move, they could not be relied on. He could only rely on himself. Since that was the case, he had no choice but to avoid the Sword's Gate for the time being. After all, the Sword's Gate was too powerful now. Who in the entire world could compete with the Sword's Gate? Xie Tian had already made his preparations to retreat. As for where to hide, there were many choices for Xie Tian. After all, the boundless world was this big, and there were many small worlds, so it was too easy to hide. Even if the Sword Sect was the ruler of the boundless world, in all these small worlds and the boundless world, wanting to find his group was not an easy matter. It was a pity that when Xie Tian made his decision, Xin Yuanling had also made his arrangements. After saying goodbye to Xiao Chun, Xin Yuanling immediately returned to his residence and made arrangements for Xie Tian's matter. First, the number of people in charge of monitoring Xie Tian had increased by quite a bit, even including the vice sect master-level people of the Sword Sect. Secondly, Xin Yuanling had ordered people to seal off the spatial channels that led to the various small worlds in the Great Thousand World, not allowing anyone to enter. Doing this was a precaution. If Xie Tian really escaped under their eyes, at least they didn't need to worry about Xie Tian running into a small world. Even if Xie Tian ran into a small world, the Sword Sect would immediately know, greatly reducing the search area. With these two adjustments, the possibility of Xie Tian escaping was greatly reduced. But even like this, Xin Yuanling was still a bit worried. In the end, he personally went to see Jun Wuya. Sword Sect, Jun Wuya's residence. This was a mountain beside the main peak of the Sword Sect. It was specially provided for Jun Wuya and the other old ancestors to live in. Originally, there was only Jun Wuya here, but with the Blade Sect, Dan Valley, Talisman Sect, and the Moon Palace, Dao Xiong, Dan Xinyang, Luo Xing, and the others all moved here, making this small mountain a bit more lively. Knowing that Xin Yuanling had personally come to visit him, Jun Wuya didn't choose to reject him. Seeing Xin Yuanling in the courtyard, Jun Wuya softly said, "Is something the matter? Old ancestor, I indeed have a request." Hearing this, Xin Yuanling honestly replied with a very respectful attitude. Xin Yuanling and Long Qing were very respectful towards Jun Wuya. After all, Jun Wuya had taught them before. Although he didn't officially take them as disciples, it wasn't an exaggeration to say that Jun Wuya had given Xin Yuanling and Long Qing quite a few opportunities. The two of them being able to reach this step today was indeed thanks to Jun Wuya. Xin Yuanling's reincarnation power and Long Qing's ancestral dragon bloodline were all given to him by Jun Wuya. So, even if Xin Yuanling was no longer the young boy from before, when facing Jun Wuya, he still treated him like a junior. He told Jun Wuya the truth. In fact, he wanted Jun Wuya to personally see Xie Tian and didn't need to make a move. However, he couldn't let Xie Tian successfully withdraw. He had to ensure that he knew Xie Tian's specific location. Hearing Xin Yuanling's words, Junhua didn't hesitate too much and directly nodded in agreement. Fine, this old man will personally make a trip. The matter of Xie Tian should be resolved as soon as possible. Otherwise, the Great Thousand World will always be in a mess. Jun Wuya readily agreed. Seeing this, Xin Yuanling naturally cupped his hands and thanked him. Seeking collection, seeking monthly votes, seeking recommendation. This chapter ends. Chapter 2673. Jun Wuya was clearly in charge of monitoring Xie Tian. With such a large move, naturally it could not be hidden from Xie Tian's eyes. But at this point, the Sword Sect did not have any intentions of hiding anything. To put it bluntly, they were openly monitoring him. The only thing they didn't tell Xie Tian was that they were monitoring him and waiting for Xiao Chun to come out to take care of him. Faced with the Sword Sect's large-scale actions, Xie Tian was so angry that his teeth itched. This was simply going too far, but even if he was angry, Xietian couldn't do anything. Who could he blame for being weaker than others? To put it bluntly, the sword sect was suppressing others. I'm strong, so naturally I can do whatever I want. So what if you're a fish on the chopping board? When a sword sect's people firmly surrounded Xietian's group, even surrounding them, Xiao Chan finally went into closed-door cultivation. The injuries on his body had been healed by Dan Xingyang and had almost recovered. It had to be said, Dan Xingyang's name was not for nothing. He really was the #1 alchemist in the world. His alchemy skills were something no one could compare to. If it wasn't for Dan Xingyang's help, Xiao Chan would not have recovered this quickly. After all, Xiao Chen's injuries were not light this time. However, after the injury was healed, Xiao Chan still needed to regenerate his left arm. Of course, this was even less of a problem. Not to mention that he had the help of the elixir refined by Dan Xingyang. Even if he relied on his own cultivation, it would not be too difficult for him to regenerate a severed limb. Before going into closed-door cultivation, Xiao Chun had specially sent a message to the 100-Flower Fairy, telling them to quickly return after taking care of the Wang family's matters. They also told them not to let Xiao Luan wander around outside. The matter had already reached the most crucial point. Xiao Chan did not want to give Xietian any chance at this final moment, especially to his family. Receiving Xiao Chen's message, the 100-Flower Fairies group of 3 naturally agreed. They said that once the Wang family's matters were taken care of, they would return to the sword sect without any delay. Like this, Xiao Chan finally calmed down and went into closed-door cultivation to heal his left arm. Xiao Chen's closed-door cultivation was not hidden from everyone. The 100-Flower Fairy and the other girls in the Wang family had been waiting for Wang Menglin to take care of the Wang family's matters. The group of people led by Wang Shanshi, there was no need to mention that they were all killed by Wang Menglin. Wang Menglin didn't have any sympathy for these people at all. It didn't matter if this matter was controlled by Xietian or not. Wang Shanshi and the others couldn't escape the death penalty for their actions. So, there was no doubt about killing them. As Wang Shanshi and the others were killed, the direct descendants of the Wang family who had been locked up in the dungeon were all released and regained their freedom. Seeing Wang Menglin return with the experts of the sword sect and killing Wang Shanshi's group, the Wang family's direct descendants were all excited. There were even some Wang Menglin's uncles who suggested that Wang Menglin take over the family head position, not caring that Wang Menglin was a girl. Properly speaking, the Wang family head position could not be given to a girl, but in the Wang family's direct descendants, other than Wang Menglin, there was no one more suitable to take over the family head position. It could be considered going against the wishes of the masses, but Wang Menglin rejected them without even thinking about it. In the Wang family's main hall, hearing that everyone wanted her to take over the family head position, Wang Menglin rejected them on the spot. Uncles, I am not interested in the family head position, so you should choose someone else for the family head position. Hearing Wang Menglin's direct rejection, the Wang family's high-level members were all stunned. They never thought that Wang Menglin would reject them. Love Literature Network nominating Wang Menglin to take over the family head position was already going against the teachings of their ancestors, but they had no other choice. Who would have thought that Wang Menglin would reject them? It was needless to say how attractive the position of the family head was to all the disciples of the Wang family. It was not difficult to tell from Wang Shanshi's willingness to take the risk. However, Wang Menglin rejected him directly without any hesitation. It was as if the position of the head of the Wang family was nothing in Wang Menglin's eyes. In fact, it was indeed so. The family head position of the Wang family might be a dream for others, but in Wang Menglin's eyes, it was not attractive at all. What a joke! Disregarding everything else, was the Wang clan's clan head more valuable than the 10-sword maniacs of Swords Gate? Obviously not. Now, that Wang Menglin was one of the top 10 sword fanatics in the sword sect, Wang Menglin would have to be crazy to give up the position of the sword sect's top 10 sword fanatics, or even withdraw from the sword sect to be the family head of the Wang family. Moreover, after being in the sword sect for so many years, Wang Menglin's horizons have been broadened. To be honest, Wang Menglin did not care about the small Wang family anymore. If it were not for the bloodline connection, Wang Menglin probably would not have cared about the Wang family's matters. Cleaning up the Wang family and avenging her father was all Wang Minglin could do. As for withdrawing from the sword sect for the Wang family, it was obviously impossible. Wang Minglin's uncles chimed in one after another after a moment of astonishment. Minglin, you're right. The family head position is our Wang family's greatest glory. Now that you have the opportunity to become the family head, why would you reject it? That's right. Minglin, although our Wang family's vitality has been greatly damaged, we are still worthy of being the overlord of Yi province. Why would you reject it? Minglin, the Wang family needs you. As a member of the Wang family, isn't it your duty to revitalize the family? Everyone tried to persuade her, but Wang Minglin did not take any action. After everyone finished speaking, Wang Minglin spoke indifferently. I really don't have any thoughts about the family head position, nor am I willing. If I have to say something, it would be that I cannot withdraw from the sword sect. Uncles, Minglin will speak the truth. Minglin is now one of the top 10 sword fanatics in the sword sect. Don't you know which is more important between the Wang family's family head and the top 10 sword fanatics in the sword sect? Giving up one of the top 10 sword fanatics for the family head position, do you think this is worth it? Moreover, Minglin has seen and heard many things in the sword sect over the years. The Wang family structure is too small, and it is not what Minglin wants. Between staying in a corner and soaring through the 9 heavens, Minglin chooses the latter. Therefore, I hope that uncles can understand. The Wang family stage was too small for Wang Minglin. Although Wang Minglin's talent and current strength were enough for her to dominate Yi province, what was this? Was she a frog at the bottom of a well? Clearly, Wang Minglin did not wish for this. Her true stage was in the sword sect, not the Wang family. Chapter 2674. Wang Minglin's words left the upper echelons of the Wang family speechless. The position of family head that they thought to be incomparably noble was nothing in Wang Minglin's eyes. Wang Minglin's words left the upper echelons of the Wang family speechless. The position of family head that they thought to be incomparably noble was nothing in Wang Minglin's eyes. Indeed, compared to the 10 sword fanatics in the sword sect, the position of family head was nothing. Wang Minglin's choice was reasonable. Although to Wang Minglin, the competition in the Sword's Gate might be more intense, it was precisely because of this that those who could stand out could be considered the true prodigies of this era. Instead of sitting at the bottom of the well like a frog at the bottom of a well, why not step onto the real stage and compete with the other heaven's favorites? This was Wang Minglin's idea. Even if she had to work harder and face more dangers, Wang Minglin was not afraid. Seeing that everyone was silent, Wang Minglin stood up and said indifferently, "The Wang family's matter is over. As for the position of family head, I won't interfere. Uncles, you could decide for yourselves." After speaking, Wang Minglin stepped out of the main hall. Seeing Wang Minglin's departing figure, the upper echelons of the Wang family understood that this prodigy of the Wang family was getting further and further away from the family. The increase in her strength was one aspect, but more importantly, it was the change this time. After joining the Sword's Gate, Wang Minglin had rarely contacted the Wang family. At Wang Minglin's level, to be honest, the Wang family could no longer provide her with any help. Previously, Wang Minglin might still be thinking about her father, so she kept in touch with the Wang family. But this time, with the death of Wang Minglin's father, the contact between Wang Minglin and the Wang family would probably become less and less. But no matter what, Wang Minglin was the pride of the Wang family. In the future, anyone who wanted to make a move against the Wang family would have to think about whether they could deal with Wang Minglin. Otherwise, this matter would be a lesson for them. After rejecting the Wang family's invitation without hesitation, Wang Minglin left the main hall and went to find Xiao Wan. At the same time, she also saw 100 Flower Fairy and the other 2 ladies. Facing the 3 ladies, Wang Minglin no longer had the confidence from before. She became very respectful, even a little nervous and fearful. She respectfully bowed to the 3 ladies and said, "Disciple greets madam. No need to be so reserved, sit." Flower Fairy gently smiled and gestured for Wang Minglin to take a seat. Wang Minglin sat her day, and she personally poured a cup of tea's head. She personally poured a cup of tea and asked Wang Minglin's. Wang Minglin's matter. A flower fairy personally poured a cup of Minglin's. She, and personally, Fairy poured a cup of the family herself. Her of the family was Saturday. SB's. In Wang Minglin's eyes, the difference between Flower Fairy and the Wang family was like the difference between an immortal and a mortal. In front of her own family, Wang Minglin could be incomparably confident. However, in front of Flower Fairy, Wang Minglin was very reserved. This was the difference in strength. It was also Wang Minglin's goal. Although Wang Minglin knew that she might not be able to reach the heights of Flower Fairy and the other two ladies in her lifetime, as long as she was in the Sword Sect, Wang Minglin would continue to improve. As for how far she could go in the end, no one could say for sure. Hearing Flower Fairy's question, Wang Minglin respectfully replied, "Yes, it's all done. Then let's go back tomorrow. The situation is complicated now. It's dangerous to be outside. This is also the sect master's intention." Flower Fairy smiled. Since the Wang family's matter had been settled, there was no point in staying any longer. Wang Minglin didn't refuse. After all, Wang Minglin didn't have much attachment to the Wang family now. To put it bluntly, as long as she was here, there wouldn't be any power that would dare to provoke the Wang family. Wang Minglin was very confident in this point. A day passed. On the second day, Flower Fairy's group left the Wang family and returned to the Sword Sect. On the other side, Xietian, who was surrounded by the experts of the Sword Sect, finally couldn't take it anymore. He made a decision that he had no choice, which was to break out of the encirclement. From secretly monitoring him at the beginning to openly monitoring him now, the movements of the Sword Sect made Xietian feel a great threat. At the same time, he also understood Xiao Chen's meaning. They wanted to keep a close eye on him. Once Xiao Chen recovered, they would eliminate him in one fell swoop. For this, Xietian naturally couldn't just give up and obediently wait for death. Since secretly retreating was impossible, he could only take advantage of the time before Xiao Chen recovered to forcefully break out of the encirclement. When the time came, he would think of a way to hide himself. Anyway, he couldn't just watch as he died. Thinking of this, taking advantage of the night, Xietian led his group to break out of the encirclement. At first, it was very smooth since Xietian was personally making a move. The people of the Sword Sect couldn't stop them at all. But in the end, with the appearance of the vice sect master of the Sword Sect, Xietian's group met a strong resistance. But even like this, Xietian's group was still able to break out of the encirclement. In the end, Jun Wuya appeared and stopped Xietian. In that moment, Xietian's face sunk. He never thought that even Jun Wuya would personally come. Looking at Jun Wuya in front of him, Xietian's eyes were cold as he said, "Jun Wuya, I never thought that even you would come. There's no other way. They can't stop you with just them." In this regard, Jun Wuya was very calm and even had a faint smile on his face. After all, his mission this time was not to kill Xietian, but rather to stop him. Otherwise, Jun Wuya could just escape, and this mission was not hard for Jun Wuya. However, for Xietian, Jun Wuya's appearance was not good news. He had been stopped, and his subordinates couldn't break through the blockade of the Sword Sect experts. Like this, wouldn't they be trapped to death? They could only wait for Xiao Chen to come out and be exterminated in one fell swoop. They had made up their mind to trap Xietian's group. Xietian's heart was filled with rage, and he felt a sense of humiliation, but there was nothing he could do. Xiao Chen had not appeared yet, so the Sword Sect did not have any plans to make a move. But if they trap him like this, how was that different from waiting for death? In his rage, Xietian knew that he had to break out of this encirclement even if he had to die. So without another word, Xietian directly made his move while coldly shouting at Jun Wuya. "Jun Wuya, do you really think you can stop me? You'll know once you try." Hearing this, Jun Wuya gave a cold laugh, not fearing Xietian's attack at all. Chapter 2675. Xietian had a breakout today because being trapped here, he would die sooner or later. Now that Xiao Chun was in closed-door cultivation, the sword sect did not have any intentions of making a move. However, once Xiao Chun came out, the situation would be completely different. Xietian had a breakout today because being trapped here, he would die sooner or later. Now that Xiao Chun was in closed-door cultivation, the sword sect did not have any intentions of making a move. However, once Xiao Chun came out, the situation would be completely different. At that time, if he couldn't break out of the sword sect's encirclement, the situation would be even more difficult than it was now. So, even if Jun Weia personally came out to stop him, Xietian still firmly wanted to break out and did not have any intentions of retreating. It wasn't that Xietian didn't want to retreat. Rather, there was no path to retreat to. As soon as his voice fell, Xietian took the initiative to make a move. Jun Weia also did his best to counterattack, and the two of them began a fight. Following the intense battle between Jun Weia and Xietian, the other experts from both sides also made their moves, creating a chaotic battle. The battle was very intense, but it was clear that Xietian's side did not want to continue fighting. So, their attacks were very fierce, but they did not have any intentions of going all out. They just wanted to break out of the encirclement. Only, with the sword sect's experts doing their best to block them, it was not easy for Xietian's group to break out of the encirclement. It was very hard for them to succeed, and they were forced back each time. They had already made their preparations, so this time the sword sect did not fall into a disadvantage at all. They kept attacking Xietian's group. In this kind of intense battle, Xietian became angrier the more he fought. After all, his goal was not to fight to the death with Jun Weia, but rather to break out of the encirclement. However, Jun Weia kept pestering him, not giving him a chance to leave. The more Xietian fought, the more anxious he became. On the other hand, Jun Weia had a relaxed look on his face. Compared to Xietian, Jun Weia was much more relaxed. He did not need to care about anything else. He just needed to make sure Xietian didn't break out. This task was very simple. Seeing that he couldn't break through Jun Weia's blockade, Xietian's eyes sunk. It was clear that he was going all out. Seeing this, Jun Weia spoke in a calm voice. Xietian, think carefully before making a move. Are you certain you want to go all out with me here? Being heavily injured is not a good thing for you right now. Jun Weia softly said, but these words were like a bucket of cold water that instantly made Xietian's heart turn cold. Xietian did indeed want to go all out with Jun Weia just now, but with Jun Weia's words, this idea was quickly rejected by Xietian. Because what Jun Weia said was right. At this time, being heavily injured was not a good thing. It would even put him in danger. On the other hand, Jun Weia was not afraid of being injured. Even if he was heavily injured, Jun Weia could return to the sword sect to recover. But as for Xietian, once he was heavily injured, the consequences could be imagined. He was already facing the endless pursuit of the sword sect, and if he was heavily injured, he wouldn't even have the ability to protect himself. So, if he and Jun Weia were both heavily injured, Xietian was not willing to see this and could not accept it. For a while, the fighting intent that had just appeared in Xietian's heart instantly disappeared. Facing the sword sect, Xietian felt like he was being suppressed, but there was no other way. Who told the sword sect to be so strong? As for him, Xietian, although he had the help of those old fellows from the Dark Era, compared to the sword sect, there was still a large difference. Seeing that Xietian had given up the idea of going all out with him, Jun Weia revealed a faint smile. He didn't say anything else and wasn't in a rush to make a move. As long as Xietian didn't run, Jun Weia didn't care what he did. Seeing Jun Weia's appearance, Xietian's teeth were itching, but he couldn't do a single thing. This large battle ended like this. Xietian brought his people back to where they were before, but they weren't able to break through the sword sect's blockade. After this battle, the sword sect surveillance of Xietian's group became even more open. They were surrounded by people from the sword sect, and after this large battle, Xin Yuanling had sent even more people, completely surrounding Xie Tian's group. Seeing that the hope of breaking through was becoming smaller and smaller, Xie Tian's heart became even heavier. This kind of feeling was like waiting for death. He clearly knew that he couldn't continue like this, but he couldn't find a way to break through. He could only watch as the days passed. Xie Tian naturally wasn't willing to accept this. So in the next few days, Xie Tian kept thinking of ways to break through. He tried all kinds of methods, but there wasn't a single one that succeeded. Xie Tian was thinking of all kinds of ways to break out, and the conflict between the two sides would erupt at any time. However, this didn't affect the other people in the sword sect at all. Because of Xianyuan Ling's actions, Xie Tian's group could be considered trapped in a very small area. They couldn't affect the other parts of the large world at all. So, even if Xie Tian hadn't been destroyed, the other parts of the large world had already returned to normal. Moreover, the people of the world had gradually forgotten about Xie Tian's existence. In this kind of situation where not even a drop of water could pass through, Xie Tian did his best to struggle, but he returned without any success each time. As for the 100 Flower Fairies group of 3, as well as Xiao Wan's group, they had already safely returned to the sword sect. Because Xiao Chun was in closed-door cultivation, the girls didn't disturb Xiao Chun. Just like this, half a month passed. On this day, Xiao Chun finally came out of closed-door cultivation. His left arm that had been cut off had clearly recovered. With his injuries completely healed, Xiao Chun saw Qin Shuru's group rushing over. After seeing the 100 Flower Fairies group, Xiao Chun revealed a faint smile. The 3 girls returning safely made Xiao Chun unconsciously let out a sigh of relief. "Husband," the girls called out to Xiao Chun. Hearing this, Xiao Chun nodded with a smile. Accompanied by the girls, Xiao Chun returned to his residence. After everyone chatted for a bit, Xiao Chun asked, "Where are those 2 brats, Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao?" Not seeing those 2 brats, Xiao Chun was a bit curious. Hearing this, Qin Shu said with a chuckle, "Those 2 brats went to the martial arts field. They said they wanted to personally witness the outer court disciple competition." This period of time was coincidentally the sword sect's outer court disciple competition. However, Xiao Chun naturally didn't care about the outer court matters. Naturally, the elders and deacons would take care of it. Not to mention Xiao Chun, even the vice sect masters like Song Xing rarely cared about the outer court matters. Hearing that the 2 brats were going to watch the outer court disciple competition, Xiao Chun didn't say anything. After laughing and scolding, he stood up and said, "I'm going to find Big Brother. It's time to deal with Xie Tian's matter. I'll leave the family matters to you guys." Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. This chapter ends. Chapter 2676. Xiao Chun came out of closed-door cultivation and simply chatted with Qin Shuru and the other girls for a bit before rushing off to find Xianyuan Ling. Xie Tian's matter was the most important right now, and it was time to make a move. Xiao Chun came out of closed-door cultivation and simply chatted with Qin Shuru and the other girls for a bit before rushing off to find Xianyuan Ling. Xie Tian's matter was the most important right now, and it was time to make a move. He learned from Qin Shuru and the other girls that Xie Tian was still surrounded by the sword sect and couldn't escape. Xiao Chun was very pleased with this. As long as Xie Tian didn't run, it was very easy to deal with him. With Xiao Chun's current strength, as long as Xie Tian didn't escape, Xiao Chun was confident he could kill Xie Tian by himself. After all, Xiao Chun's cultivation had already broken through to the small success ancestor realm, which was a small realm higher than Xie Tian's. With the difference in cultivation, Xiao Chun wasn't worried about Xie Tian at all. He was most worried about Xie Tian escaping, but now it seemed like Xianyuan Ling had done a good job, not giving Xie Tian any chance at all. He directly came to Xianyuan Ling's residence, and when he came in, Xiao Chun called out, "Big Brother." Hearing Xiao Chun's voice, Xianyuan Ling, who was taking care of business, looked up and said with a smile, "I already guessed that you would come." The news of Xiao Chun coming out of closed-door cultivation was something Xianyuan Ling naturally knew, but because he was busy with work, Xianyuan Ling didn't go see Xiao Chun. Recently, If one had to say who was the busiest in the sword sect, it was without a doubt Xian Yuanling. Seeing the tired Xian Yuanling, Xiao Chun felt a bit of self-blame. After all, these things could be considered him forcing Xian Yuanling, but Xian Yuanling didn't complain at all. Moreover, Xian Yuanling did everything very well. Especially after the last mistake, Xian Yuanling strove to do everything perfectly, as if he would only make a decision after thinking. For example, surrounding Xie Tian this time, Xian Yuanling had thought of all the details, ensuring that Xie Tian had no chance of escaping. But even like this, Xian Yuanling did not relax at all, and his entire body was tense. Looking at Xian Yuanling, Xiao Chun said sincerely, "Thank you for your hard work, big brother." These words came from the bottom of Xiao Chen's heart. Regarding this, Xian Yuanling waved his hand indifferently and said, "You and I are brothers. There's no need to be so polite. Speak when you plan to take action." Xian Yuanling didn't care about Xiao Chen's gratitude at all. Between brothers, Xian Yuanling could give his all for Xiao Chun, not to mention this little bit of hard work. He directly spoke of Xiao Chen's intentions. Xiao Chun had rushed to find him. It must be because of Xie Tian. Moreover, Xiao Chen probably couldn't hold back and wanted to make a move. This time, Xian Yuanling didn't stop him at all because in his eyes, the time was right. Moreover, Xie Tian didn't have any value, so it was time to eliminate him. Seeing that Xian Yuanling had seen through his thoughts, Xiao Chun said with a faint smile, Hey. Naturally, the faster the better." Xiao Chun didn't want to waste too much time. He wanted to take care of Xie Tian as soon as possible so that Xiao Chun could deal with other matters as soon as possible. For example, the Moon Palace, the Saber Sect, the Dan Valley, and the Talisman Sect after they merged into the Sword Sect. Although the disciples of these four Ling Tian sects had merged into the Sword Sect and had lived in the Sword Sect for a period of time, the expansion of the Sword Sect was being actively carried out and would be completed soon. However, there were still some things that hadn't been properly arranged. Moreover, Xiao Chun still had some ideas about merging the 10 Ling Tian sects that hadn't been implemented yet. These were all problems that had to be dealt with in the future. One Chinese network, however, before solving these problems, they had to eliminate Xie Tian first. After all, Xie Tian's matter couldn't be delayed any longer. Xie Tian is now a fish on the chopping board. We can make a move at any time. Moreover, to deal with Xie Tian, there's no need to use any other forces. Third brother will personally go and cooperate with the people surrounding Xie Tian. It's already enough. To deal with Xie Tian, there is no need to send more people. The experts of the Sword Sect surrounding Xie Tian were already enough. Adding in Xiao Chun personally going, there shouldn't be any problems. Hearing this, Xiao Chun also nodded. Xian Yuanling had sent over half of the experts of the Sword Sect to surround Xie Tian, so this strength was indeed enough. Moreover, after half a month of continuous fighting, Xie Tian's side had suffered heavy losses. As for the Sword Sect side, because of Xian Yuanling's arrangements, they didn't suffer too many losses. Normally after a battle, the injured people would be immediately sent back to the Sword Sect by Xian Yuanling to recover before sending people to replace them. Like this, it was like a war of attrition. Xie Tian's side never had any rest, but the Sword Sect was different. After they were injured, they would immediately receive treatment and recover. Moreover, there would be people who would immediately fill in the gaps. It could be said that with this method, the Sword Sect was gaining more and more of an advantage against Xie Tian. At this point, Xie Tian didn't dare easily break through because the more he fought, the more disadvantageous it was for Xie Tian. He didn't have the terrifying logistical support of the Sword Sect. Now was indeed the best chance to make a move against Xie Tian. Hearing this, Xiao Chun directly said, "All right, then I'll go with second sister. Big brother will stay in the Sword Sect." Xian Yuanling didn't need to participate. He just needed to stay in the Sword Sect and stabilize the situation. Xiao Chun would go with Long Qing to fight the final battle with Xie Tian. Xian Yuanling didn't stop Xiao Chen's decision because this was indeed the best choice. After the two of them talked for a bit, Xiao Chun decided to leave early in the morning. He also sent a message to Jun Wuya, Song Xing, and the others, telling them to prepare themselves. Once he arrived, he would launch the final attack on Xie Tian, swearing to eliminate Xie Tian's group in one fell swoop. After escaping death several times, and each time he appeared, Xie Tian would bring him a large amount of trouble. This made Xiao Chun feel no pity for Xie Tian at all. This person had to be killed, otherwise he would always be a disaster. But this time, Xiao Chun had to see if Xie Tian really had an undying body, being able to escape death each time. After a night of silence, the next morning, Xiao Chun brought Long Qing and left the Sword Sect in front of the high-level members and disciples of the Sword Sect. They didn't move a single person from the Sword Sect because this was already a battle where victory was already in their grasp. No matter how one looked at it, Xie Tian wasn't a match for the Sword Sect. Seeing Xiao Chun leave, the disciples of the Sword Sect were filled with confidence. They didn't think that they would lose this battle at all because everyone knew that Xie Tian was already a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. When to make a move, it all depended on their sect master. But now, Xiao Chun clearly felt that it was time to make a move. Sect master will definitely return victorious. This was what all the disciples said in unison and what they were thinking in their hearts. Chapter 2677. Xiao Chun left with Long Qing. The entire Sword Sect was filled with confidence, not worrying about the result of this battle at all, because in everyone's eyes, this was a battle they would definitely win. The Sword Sect was filled with confidence, but Xie Tian on the other side was not in a good mood at all. Xie Tian was currently feeling very depressed because after half a month of hard work, he still couldn't break through the Sword Sect's encirclement. Furthermore, with the end of every battle, the gap between their strength and the Sword's gates would widen. It couldn't be helped. The Sword's Gate had sufficient supplies and could even be said to be a war of attrition. On the other hand, the Sword's Gate could be said to be at the end of their rope. They had already used up all their pills and of Xie Tian's subordinates. Many of them were heavily injured and had lost the ability to fight. There were even some that were directly killed because of their injuries. Like this, Xie Tian's side, that couldn't compare to the Sword Sect, was becoming harder and harder to fight against the Sword Sect. It was also because Xie Tian's subordinates had used a secret technique to increase their strength, so they were completely loyal to him. There was no chance of them betraying him. Otherwise, in this situation, there would have already been people who had second thoughts. This was the only good news for Xie Tian. But even like this, the current situation for Xie Tian was becoming more and more dangerous. Moreover, according to the calculations of time, Xie Tian guessed that Xiao Chun was about to come out of closed-door cultivation. Once Xiao Chun came out, it could be imagined what would happen to him. Because he was heavily surrounded, Xie Tian naturally had no way of knowing what was happening in the outside world. He also didn't know that Xiao Chun had already come out of closed-door cultivation and was on his way here. The situation was even more dangerous than he imagined. However, even if Xie Tian knew, he didn't have any good methods. This was a dead end for him, a dead end that he couldn't break at all. His heart was filled with anger and depression, but there was nothing he could do. Xie Tian already didn't know what he should do. If he continued to break out, there was little hope and he would be wasting his strength, which was clearly not good. But if he didn't break out, could it be that he had to wait for death here? Wait for Xiao Chun to come out of seclusion and then launch the final attack? Xie Tian was in a difficult situation, and the experts of the Sword Sect surrounding Xie Tian were already making their final preparations. They had already received Xiao Chun's orders and were prepared to deal the final fatal blow to Xie Tian. Now, they were just waiting for Xiao Chun to arrive, and then they could attack. Medicinal pellets, charms, and other supplies were distributed to the Sword's Gate Qi practitioners. Each and every Sword's Gate Qi practitioners received enough medicinal pellets and charms to prepare for the final battle. After a day passed, Xiao Chun brought Long Qing to the sect where Xie Tian's group was. This sect had been destroyed by Xie Tian and became Xie Tian's temporary base. He had never made a move against this place. Now was the time. With Xiao Qin's arrival, Jun Wuya, Song Xing, and the others personally came to greet him. When he saw Jun Wuya, Xiao Qin took the initiative to greet him. Master. Although Xiao Qin's strength had already surpassed Jun Wuya's, Xiao Qin was still very respectful to Jun Wuya. Regarding this, Jun Wuya also nodded with a faint smile. The group entered the starship floating in the air. This was the temporary command center for the experts of the Sword Sect. In the starship, Xiao Qin directly spoke. Master, everyone, it's time to end this battle. We'll launch our attack tomorrow morning and take down Xie Tian's group in one fell swoop. Xiao Qin did not say anything because there was no need to say anything. Dealing a fatal blow and killing Xie Tian was this simple goal. Moreover, the difference in strength between both sides was too great, so there was no need to use any tactics. There was only one request, and that was to not leave a single person alive. Xie Tian and Xie Tian subordinates. They didn't want a single person alive. This was because Xiao Qin was very clear that Xie Tian subordinates would never surrender. Moreover, even if they surrendered, Xiao Qin did not dare trust them at all, so it was better to just kill them. As for Xie Tian himself, there was no reason to let him go. He had to be killed without a doubt. Hearing Xiao Qin's words, everyone nodded. Seeing this, Xiao Qin turned to Jun Wuya and said, Master, I'll have to trouble you to attack with me tomorrow. He did not have any intentions of being arrogant. Xiao Qin was planning to have Jun Wuya work with him and use the fastest time to kill Xie Tian. Although even if it was a one-on-one, Xiao Qin was certain he could kill Xie Tian, who knew if Xie Tian had any tricks up his sleeve. If he insisted on leaving at that time, or if he had some unknown methods, Xiao Qin was worried that he wouldn't be able to stop him by himself. So, just in case, Xiao Qin had Jun Wuya work with him. Jun Wuya's task was to make sure that Xie Tian did not escape. Now was not the time to talk about fairness. So what if it was 2 against 1? As long as they could kill Xie Tian, it was enough. Hearing Xiao Qin's words, Jun Wuya replied with a nod. He understood Xiao Qin's meaning, so he did not reject him. Letting everyone rest for the night, they would attack tomorrow morning. Xiao Qin did not choose to attack at night. Although they could use the cover of the night to catch them off guard, Xiao Qin did not have any intentions of doing so. The reason was very simple. Although using the cover of the night could cover the movements of the Sword Sect, under the cover of the night, it could also help Xie Tian's group hide their movements. Moreover, with the Sword Sect's overwhelming strength, they did not need to use these kinds of tricks. Secondly, the Sword Sect's goal was to kill Xie Tian's group, under the cover of the night, who could guarantee that there wouldn't be a fish that escaped the net. So, if they attacked early in the morning, no one would be able to hide. The Sword Sect will be able to catch them all in one fell swoop, making sure that not a single fish escaped the net. So, attacking during the day was more advantageous for the Sword Sect. Even if Xie Tian was prepared, it didn't matter. Anyway, with their strength, Xie Tian was just a trapped beast. After a peaceful night, the next morning, under Xiao Qin's orders, the experts of the Sword Sect began to close in on Xie Tian's group from all directions, quickly closing in on them. Although Xie Tian was the first to receive this news, he also guessed that Xiao Qin had come out and the Sword Sect was preparing to launch their final attack on him. But Xie Tian did not have a way to deal with this. Seeing the Sword Sect's encirclement shrink, and seeing that they were almost at his door, Xie Tian did not have a way to break out. The only thing he could do now was to fight to the death. But this result, in Xie Tian's eyes, was already set in stone, and there would not be any changes. Please add, please vote, please recommend. This chapter ends. Chapter 2678. At this time, Xie Tian felt a trace of despair. This was the feeling of not being able to do anything even though he knew what the enemy wanted to do. He knew that Xiao Qin was about to launch the final attack, but he couldn't do anything about it. At this time, Xie Tian felt a trace of despair. This was the feeling of not being able to do anything even though he knew what the enemy wanted to do. He knew that Xiao Qin was about to launch the final attack, but he couldn't do anything about it. This kind of feeling was very uncomfortable, powerless, and helpless. It was like he could only resign himself to the will of the heavens. In the main hall, Xietian's heart was filled with more and more rage. Seeing that there was no other path to take, Xietian suddenly stood up and angrily shouted, "My life is up to me, not the heavens. Shout Chun, if you want to fight, then come." Being forced into a dead end, Xietian didn't think of anything else. Was there no other way? Then he wouldn't think about it. At worst, it would just be a fight. Even if the outcome was already decided, so what? Everything would only be known after the fight. As soon as his voice fell, Xietian didn't think about anything else as he led his people into the air. In the air above the sect, Xietian quickly waited for Shao Chun, who had personally led his people over. Both sides stood in the air, facing each other. But in terms of numbers, the sword sect had the absolute advantage. After a series of fierce battles, Xietian had over 1,000 experts under him, but now there were less than 600 people left. It could be said that he had lost almost half of his forces. On the other hand, the Sword Gate side had over 10,000 people. Moreover, these people were the true elites of the Sword Gate, and their cultivations were not weak. Just by looking at them, one could tell what the outcome of this battle would be. However, it was like Xietian had thought it through. There was no anger or fear in his eyes. There was only a strong fighting intent. It wasn't that Xietian didn't want to surrender, but Xietian knew that even if he chose to surrender, Shao Chun would not let him go. With the relationship and enmity between the two of them, it was impossible for Shao Chun to agree. Even if there was no enmity, would Shao Chun allow Xietian to continue living? Letting Xietian live was equal to placing a time bomb beside him that could explode at any moment. So, no matter how one looked at it, Shao Chun would not let Xietian go. Understanding this, Xietian also knew that he could only fight with all his might. Even if he died in the end, so what? His eyes were filled with fighting intent as he looked at Shao Chun. Faced with Xietian's gaze, Shao Chun couldn't help looking at Xietian in a different light. When death was at hand, Xietian was not like the others, thinking about how to survive. Rather, he was like a warrior filled with fighting intent. Although they were enemies, Xietian's performance at this moment made Shao Chun secretly praise him. It was no wonder he could become the leader of the evil path, someone who had almost subverted the entire world. Putting aside their factions and grudges, Xietian could at least be considered an indomitable martial artist. He was truly worthy of his legendary life. Faced with this kind of Xietian filled with fighting intent, Shao Chun suddenly changed his thoughts from before. Looking at Xietian, Shao Chun said with a serious expression, "Xietian, you want to fight?" "Yes." Hearing this, Xietian gave a concise reply. "All right, I'll satisfy you." He was planning on attacking Xietian with Jun Wuya, but seeing Xietian in front of him, Shao Chun changed his mind. He wanted to have a fair fight with Xietian. This was a form of respect for Xietian. Don't call it childish. Sometimes it was like this. Even if they were enemies, there were still some people who were worthy of respect. Ancient Chinese, hearing Shao Chun say these words, Xietian's fighting intent soared into the sky. From Shao Chun's words, Xietian could feel a trace of respect. Shao Chun was willing to have a fair fight with him. This was a form of recognition of an enemy like him. Although Xietian and Shao Chun would never be friends, this did not deny that Shao Chun recognized Xietian. Looking back, although Xietian's schemes were deep and his methods could even be considered despicable, it was all for the sake of winning. Just talking about himself, who wouldn't dare to admit that he was an ambitious person who could stir up the entire boundless world. His fighting intent continued to rise as Xietian looked at Shao Chun with fighting intent. All right, after saying this, a terrifying aura suddenly erupted from Xietian's body. Shao Chun was not willing to be outdone. His fighting intent soared, and his might soared into the sky. The sword world instantly enveloped the two of them. Shao Chun was determined to have a fair fight with Xietian, so Jun Wuya did not say anything about this. Looking at Xietian, The expression in Jun Wuya's eyes also changed slightly. No matter what, this was an opponent worthy of respect. Xiao Chun made the first move. With a thought, the dustless sword appeared in his hand, and he slashed out. He directly used the Emperor's sword, using a killing move as soon as he made his move. He did not have any intention of holding back at all. Since this was the final battle between the two of them, Xiao Chun would not hold back, because this would be disrespecting himself and Xie Tian. Seeing Xiao Chun take the initiative to attack, Xie Tian did not dodge at all. Rich blood qi continued to gather in front of him, finally forming countless blood-colored skeletons. The sword's edge slammed into these blood-colored skeletons, and for a while, the sky exploded as a terrifying might wildly spread out. With the eruption of Xiao Chun and Xie Tian's battle, the battle between the sword sect members and Xie Tian's subordinates also began. However, both sides had a tacit understanding, taking the initiative to distance themselves from Xiao Chun and Xie Tian. It was as if no one was willing to interfere in the battle between the two of them. This was a battle between Xiao Chun and Xie Tian. No one was qualified to interfere. This was perhaps the final battle of Xie Tian's life. Just like Xiao Chun, Xie Tian could be said to have relied on his iron fist to fight his way up, finally reaching the peak. Since this was the final battle and the end, Xie Tian was worthy of this result. With a head-on collision, Xie Tian was at a disadvantage without any surprise, but he still managed to block Xiao Chun's attack. Only when this attack fell, Xiao Chun did not give Xie Tian any time to breathe. He used Realm Flash and instantly appeared in front of Xie Tian, slashing out with his sword. Seeing this, Xie Tian did not hesitate as he reached out with his right hand, grabbing at the dustless sword in Xiao Chun's hand. There was a rich blood qi surrounding his hand, just like a ghost claw. The ghost claw tightly grabbed Xiao Chun's dustless sword and was not injured at all. At the same time, Xie Tian's other hand clenched into a fist as he fiercely punched out at Xiao Chun. Facing this, Xiao Chun did not show any weakness as he sent out a fist that collided with Xie Tian's. The fight between the two of them could be said to be a fight where every fist met flesh. Neither of them had any intention of dodging. Faced with the other's attack, both of them did not hesitate to face it head-on. This also caused the intense fight between the two to be extremely intense right from the start. It could even be said that it caused one's blood to boil. It was really rare to see two Ancestor Stage experts fighting in such a manner. Chapter 2679. Fighting head-on, not stopping until one of them died. Both of them were like this, not having any intention of retreating. Xiao Chun was determined to kill Xie Tian, and Xie Tian had nowhere to run or retreat. He just wanted to use this final battle to display his true strength. At this moment, Xie Tian and Xiao Chun did not have anything else in their minds. They were only thinking about how to kill the other party. They did not have any tricks or schemes. They were just competing with strength. As the two fists collided, terrifying shock waves swept across the horizon. Such a battle could be said to have caused the hearts and minds of everyone present to tremble. In fact, it was the first time for many people to feel such terrifying shock waves. This was the strength of an Ancestor Realm expert. And under this kind of head-on collision, Xiao Chun and Xie Tian naturally did not feel good. Their blood and qi surged, but compared to Xie Tian, Xiao Chun's situation was clearly better. After all, in terms of cultivation, Xiao Chun was stronger than Xie Tian. In terms of strength, Xiao Chun was also slightly stronger. So, after several rounds of head-on clashes, Xiao Chun gradually took the initiative. The sword realm suppressed Xie Tian, making it so that Xie Tian could not display his full strength. On the other hand, Xiao Chun became braver as he fought. Every time he slashed out, sword glows would fly across the sky, making it hard for Xie Tian to deal with. From the beginning, Xiao Chun did not plan on holding back and used his full strength. After fighting with Xie Tian for so many years, it was time to end it. Although at this final moment, Xie Tian's performance made Xiao Chun look at him in a new light, at the same time making Xiao Chun give him enough respect and willing to fight him fairly. Even like this, Xiao Chun would not let him live just because of this. Xie Tian had to die. Not to mention how Xiao Chun looked at him, he was still an enemy, so Xie Tian had to die today. The Emperor's sword slashed out again and again, facing Xiao Chun's fierce attacks. Although Xie Tian found it hard to deal with, he did not have the slightest intention of retreating. His fighting intent did not decrease, and his eyes turned red. He did not care about the injuries on his body or the blood flowing from the corner of his mouth. Xie Tian turned a deaf ear to it and did not care about it at all. Since this was the final battle, he would fight until there were no regrets. Even if the battle had already ended from the beginning, he would not give up even if he knew he was not a match. Dense blood energy gathered around Xie Tian and covered most of the sky. This blood energy covered the sky, and even the sun's light was like this. And under the cover of this blood energy, Xie Tian was also constantly fighting back, competing with Xiao Chen's sword qi. He threw out a punch, and the blood and qi condensed into a pair of iron fists that slammed down on Xiao Chun. Xiao Chun slashed out with his sword and tore apart Xie Tian's iron fists. He did not stop as he took a step forward. At the same time, he slashed out with the sword in his hand. A golden sword glow flew across the sky and instantly appeared in front of Xie Tian. This sword was not weaker than the Emperor's sword, but it was several times faster than the Emperor's sword. It was comparable to the Realm Flash. This was also a new move that Xiao Chun had comprehended after breaking through to the Progenitor Realm. He had fused the Realm Flash with the Emperor's sword as a foundation, allowing his sword to possess the ability of the Realm Flash, thus increasing the speed of his attacks. It was indeed like teleportation. Moreover, the sword qi of this sword had turned completely golden. Faced with this sudden attack that seemed like it came out of thin air, Xie Tian didn't have time to react at all as he was hit by the sword. Instantly, a bone-deep wound appeared on his chest, and Xie Tian was sent flying by this sword. Latest, the Emperor's sword with the Realm Flash ability was indeed hard to defend against, but this was not the end. Just this sword alone was not enough to cause fatal injuries to Xie Tian. Xiao Chun was very clear on this point, so after Xie Tian was hit, Xiao Chun did not stop and slashed out several more times. Instantly, 3 golden sword glows appeared around Xie Tian and surrounded him at the same time. Faced with the same 3 golden sword glows, Xie Tian could not resist at all. His eyes revealed a look of despair as he watched the 3 golden sword glows hit him. Instantly, intense pain filled Xie Tian's body. At the same time, Xie Tian felt his aura disappearing and his divine soul was about to be torn apart. This was the sign of death. Xiao Chen's 3 sword glows did not hold back at all and were aimed at killing Xie Tian. Xie Tian was hit by the 3 golden sword glows and was heavily injured. His divine soul was heavily injured, and he was on the verge of death. Everything happened very quickly, and after the golden light disappeared, Xie Tian, who was covered in blood with a weak aura and disheveled hair, appeared in front of everyone again. But the current Xie Tian did not seem to have any strength left to fight. Seeing Xie Tian, who only had a single breath left, Xiao Chun softly said, "Xie Tian, it's over." Hearing this, Xie Tian looked at Xiao Chun with sparkling eyes. He was very clear on his own situation, and it was indeed over. Even if Xiao Chun did not make a move, it would be hard for Xie Tian to survive. The injuries to his body did not count for anything, but the most important thing was that Xiao Chen's attack had heavily injured his divine soul. The divine soul was heavily injured, and even an Ancestor Realm expert would find it hard to recover. Moreover, it was a direct injury to his foundation. At this moment, Xie Tian could clearly feel that his divine soul was already slowly dissipating. This meant that his divine soul was already on the verge of collapse. A faint smile appeared on his face. Facing death, Xie Tian had thought it through. There was no longer any fighting intent in his eyes as he calmly looked at Xiao Chun and spoke in a calm voice. "That's right, it's over. It's time to end it." At this moment of life and death, Siet Tian had a carefree expression. The ending could not be changed, but the eyes he looked at Xiao Chun with were filled with a complicated look. Siet Tian did not know what kind of feeling Xiao Chun had. When they first met, Xiao Chun did not enter his eyes at all. But in just a few years, Xiao Chun had already grown to this point. If there was a heaven's chosen one in this world, it would be Xiao Chun. Losing to him was not an injustice. Hearing Siet Tian's words, Xiao Chun did not reply. He directly slashed out with the Emperor's sword, and a sharp sword glow and countless sword chi swallowed Siet Tian. Facing Xiao Chun's attack, this time Siet Tian did not choose to dodge or resist. Perhaps he knew the result and calmly accepted it. Siet Tian chose to accept his fate. It was like Xiao Chun had said, the fight between the two of them should end here. Chapter 2680. The Emperor's sword's dazzling sword glow and countless sword chi instantly swallowed Siet Tian. With this slash from Xiao Chun, Siet Tian's aura also quickly disappeared. The Emperor's sword's dazzling sword glow and countless sword chi instantly swallowed Siet Tian. With this slash from Xiao Chun, Siet Tian's aura also quickly disappeared. Although they couldn't see Siet Tian's figure, based on his aura, Siet Tian should have already died, killed by Xiao Chun. After all, with Siet Tian's previous injuries and now that he had been hit by Xiao Chun, the chances of him surviving was very small, or it could be said that it was almost impossible. Xiao Chun successfully killing Siet Tian, this was something that was expected. However, Siet Tian's death still made some people feel that it was a bit unreal, like Song Xing's group. It wasn't that they didn't have confidence in Xiao Chun. Rather, it was because they had fought with Siet Tian for all these years. Even if they were enemies, Siet Tian's position in the hearts of Song Xing's group was very high. Not to mention the previous Siet Tian had suppressed the entire boundless world. For this kind of hero to fall like this, it indeed made people feel that it was too unreal. But no matter what, Siet Tian had still fallen in the end. This was something that everyone was very clear on. With Siet Tian dead, his remaining subordinates naturally wouldn't be able to cause any waves. But when everyone was secretly letting out a sigh of relief, Xiao Chun's expression slightly changed. He couldn't feel Siet Tian's aura before, and he should have died, but at this time, from the endless sword chi, there was actually an aura that was slowly being released. Xiao Chun was filled with doubts about this. He didn't know the reason, but his intuition told Xiao Chun that this matter wasn't that simple. The facts were indeed as Xiao Chun thought. Siet Tian, who was surrounded by endless sword chi, should have died. But now, there was a thick black mist that was rising from Siet Tian's body. This black fog quickly surrounded Siet Tian's body, and under the cover of this black fog, Siet Tian's injuries could be seen with the naked eye quickly healing. Siet Tian, who had already lost consciousness, but with the help of the black fog, he slowly woke up like he had come back from the dead. But Siet Tian, who had escaped death, didn't have a trace of joy in his eyes. Rather, his eyes were filled with fear. Escaping death should have made him happy, but Siet Tian was not like this at all. This was because under the cover of the black fog, Siet Tian felt like his consciousness was being swallowed, being pulled into the abyss by something. His consciousness, intelligence, and everything else seemed to be stripped away. That's right. It was as if someone was occupying his body and soul, erasing his consciousness. To put it bluntly, there was a mysterious power that wanted to take over Siet Tian's body. This was Siet Tian's first time encountering this kind of thing, and it was very strange, so he wasn't happy at all. This was because if this continued, then Siet Tian, would also die. As for his body and divine soul, they wouldn't be his anymore. He tried his best to force this mysterious power out of his body, but no matter how Siet Tian tried, this mysterious power wouldn't move at all. Siet Tian also couldn't do a single thing to this mysterious power. After several attempts, Siet Tian finally felt a familiar aura from this mysterious power. This aura was something Siet Tian had felt in the Dark Era. It was the power that those old fellows from the Dark Era had. At the same time, it was this power that allowed Siet Tian to be reborn. But now, This power wanted to swallow him and take over his body and soul. Instantly, Xietian seemed to understand something. His eyes filled with a sky-soaring rage as he shouted through gritted teeth. "Old farts, you tricked me." This power had been injected into his body from the beginning by those old fellows from the Dark Era. At this time, Xietian also reacted. It was very likely that those old fellows from the Dark Era had been plotting against him since the beginning. Perhaps in the hearts of those old guys from the Dark Age, they never thought that he would be a match for the Swords Gate and Shao Chun. The reason why they resurrected him and even helped him seemed like they were generous, but to put it bluntly, it was just an experiment. They used this mysterious power to do an experiment. They wanted to see if this power could replace a person's consciousness and control their body and soul, creating a new person that would only listen to orders. Thinking of this, the rage in Xietian's heart couldn't be suppressed. He could only watch as his body and soul were slowly eroded, but he couldn't do a thing. This kind of feeling one could only understand after personally experiencing it. Along with Xietian's angry curses, the sword glow and sword chi slowly dissipated, and Xietian's figure appeared in front of Shao Chun once again. However, the current Xietian was completely different from before. Xietian's body was currently covered in black mist, and his aura had completely recovered. The injuries from before had also healed in a short period of time. Seeing Xietian appear in front of him again, Shao Chun's brows slightly knit. With a single glance, Shao Chun could see that Xietian's current state was not right. It was like a completely different person compared to before, giving Shao Chun a strange feeling. He didn't know why Xietian had changed like this, and Shao Chun couldn't explain it for a while. However, Shao Chun was certain that the current Xietian was even harder to deal with than before. This was what Shao Chun's intuition told him. Although he didn't have any proof, Shao Chun firmly believed it. It was like he was a completely different person. Chapter 2681. Shao Chun looked at the unfamiliar Xietian in front of him. Although his appearance didn't change at all, the feeling he gave to Shao Chun was incomparably unfamiliar, like he wasn't a person at all. Shao Chun looked at the unfamiliar Xietian in front of him. Although his appearance didn't change at all, the feeling he gave to Shao Chun was incomparably unfamiliar, like he wasn't a person at all. So Shao Chun was certain that the Xietian in front of him wasn't Xietian at all. However, as soon as Shao Chun's voice fell, Xietian's reply was to attack without any warning. Kill. After coldly spitting out the word kill, Xietian took a step forward and charged at Shao Chun in an instant. At the same time, the black mist around him wildly expanded, quickly enveloping the space the two of them were in. Being surrounded by the black mist, Xietian's aura increased by several times, reaching the limit of the ancestor realm. He threw out a fierce punch. The attack style were no different from before, but Shao Chun was certain that this was not Xietian. Or rather, it was something that had inherited Xietian's body and martial arts skills. Without time to think, Shao Chun could only slash out with his sword, clashing with Xietian. The two of them clashed, and this time, Xietian actually wasn't at a disadvantage. The two of them were evenly matched. Shao Chun, who had the absolute advantage before, but now that he was fighting with Xietian, he couldn't gain the slightest bit of advantage. This kind of change shocked everyone, but before anyone could think about it, Shao Chun and Xietian's battle had already erupted. At this moment, Shao Chun didn't have the slightest bit of carelessness. Although he didn't know what had happened to Xietian, he had to kill Xietian in the end. Whether the Xietian in front of him was Xietian or someone else had taken over his body, Shao Chun couldn't allow Xietian to continue existing. His eyes became sharp, and Shao Chun did not show any mercy when he attacked, being incomparably ruthless. On the other hand, Xietian maintained the same expression from beginning to end, not showing any changes at all. The two of them fought an intense battle, and this battle was even more intense than before. Moreover, Shao Chun's fight with Xietian was no longer as easy as before. The golden slash fused with the realm flash didn't have much of an effect on the current Xietian, because each time Xiao Chun attacked, Xie Tian would block it. His defense, strength, speed, and reflexes had all improved significantly, but his cultivation remained the same. Even though it had increased, it still hadn't broken through to the Emperor realm. There were large changes in all aspects, but for Xiao Chun, he couldn't care about this right now. The most important thing right now was to kill Xie Tian. As for what happened to Xie Tian, it wouldn't be too late to slowly investigate it later. A fierce battle broke out, and in the blink of an eye, the two of them had already exchanged hundreds of blows. Their attacks were extremely fast, and the space around them was constantly torn apart by the shock waves from their battle. The black fog and sword chi constantly collided, contended, and fought against each other. The sword in Xiao Chen's hand turned into a rain of swords that constantly attacked Xie Tian. In a battle of this level, others naturally couldn't interfere. As for Jun Wuya, Xiao Chun didn't let him interfere and let him focus on dealing with Xie Tian's subordinates. With Jun Wuya's help, they could greatly reduce the casualties on the sword sec side. As for Xie Tian, Xiao Chun was still confident that he could defeat him. This battle lasted for 3 days. The two of them fought from the Great Thousand World to the Void, and their injuries weren't light. Xiao Chun himself was also quite injured. However, compared to Xie Tian, Xiao Chen's injuries were much lighter. Xie Tian was already heavily injured. Only even if Xie Tian was heavily injured, he still didn't have any intention of retreating. Moreover, he didn't fear death, and even his expression didn't change that much. This kind of action made Xiao Chen's heart filled with doubt. However, the battle had already reached this point, and it was about time to end it. In these 3 days, the two of them had consumed quite a bit of energy. Xie Tian only had a single breath left, and with his current situation, Xiao Chun could indeed directly kill him. After fighting for this long, it was time to end it. Xiao Chun circulated the spiritual energy in his body. After reaching the ancestor realm, he didn't need to worry about running out of spiritual energy. One reason was because the spiritual energy in an ancestor realm expert's body was already very large. 2. The recovery ability of an ancestor realm expert was also very terrifying. Spiritual energy surged out of his body, and Xiao Chun pushed the sword world to its peak. Countless sword chi flew out from all directions at Xie Tian. Under the wild attack of these sword chi, countless small wounds quickly appeared on Xie Tian's body. Blood kept flowing out of his wounds, but this was not Xiao Chen's killing move. With just these methods, it wasn't enough to kill Xie Tian. At this time, Xiao Chun held his sword with both hands and swept out. With a sweep of his sword, a 300-meter-long sword chi cut through the sky. The golden sword glow was so dazzling that people couldn't open their eyes. The might of this sword was terrifying. Before the sword even arrived, the terrifying might was already enough to make people tremble in fear. He was instantly swallowed by the golden sword glow, and the golden sword chi cut Xie Tian's body in half. Moreover, the divine soul in his body was also instantly erased. To ensure that Xie Tian didn't have the slightest chance, Xiao Chun didn't hold back with this sword. Even when the sword finally hit Xie Tian, Xiao Chun didn't relax at all. His eyes were still staring right at Xie Tian. Seeing Xie Tian's body being cut in half, Xiao Chun's divine sense swept out. After the previous matter, Xiao Chun was even more cautious this time. He had to ensure that Xie Tian was truly dead. Under Xiao Chun's divine sense, Xie Tian's life force was quickly dissipating. Feeling Xie Tian's life force dissipating, Xiao Chun felt a bit more at ease, but he didn't relax too much. What happened to Xie Tian was too strange. In a normal situation, everyone else would have died without a doubt, but it was hard to say for Xie Tian, so Xiao Chun didn't dare relax. Xiao Chun had been using his divine sense to cover Xie Tian the entire time. Only when he felt that Xie Tian's vitality had completely dissipated did Xiao Chun finally relax. However, just as Xie Tian was about to die, a black mist rushed out of Xie Tian's body and quickly dissipated. This black mist was very similar to the black mist that surrounded Xietian before, but it was a bit different. This black mist was much darker and could even be considered more solid, just like a mass of black water. This mass of black water came out of Xietian's body and then disappeared. Following that, Xietian's aura also disappeared. This was a strange scene. Xiao Chan wanted to make a move to take that mass of black water, but he was a step too slow in the end. Xiao Chun looked at the unfamiliar Xietian in front of him. Although his appearance didn't change at all, the feeling he gave to Xiao Chun was incomparably unfamiliar, like he wasn't a person at all. Xiao Chun looked at the unfamiliar Xietian in front of him. Although his appearance didn't change at all, the feeling he gave to Xiao Chun was incomparably unfamiliar, like he wasn't a person at all. So Xiao Chun was certain that the Xietian in front of him wasn't Xietian at all. However, as soon as Xiao Chen's voice fell, Xietian's reply was to attack without any warning. Kill. As he coldly spat out the word kill, Xietian took a step forward and charged at Xiao Chun in an instant. At the same time, the black mist around him wildly expanded, quickly enveloping the space the two of them were in. Under the cover of the black mist, Xietian's aura increased by several times, reaching the limit of the ancestor realm. He sent out a fierce punch, but the attack style was no different from before. However, Xiao Chun was certain that this wasn't Xietian, or rather something had inherited Xietian's body and martial skills. Without any time to think, Xiao Chun could only send out a slash, clashing with Xietian. The two of them clashed, but this time, Xietian wasn't at a disadvantage, and the two of them were evenly matched. Xiao Chun, who had the absolute advantage before, but now that he was fighting with Xietian, he wasn't able to gain any advantage at all. After fighting for this long, it was time to end it. Xiao Chun circulated the spiritual energy in his body. With a cultivation in the ancestor realm, he didn't need to worry about running out of spiritual energy. One reason was because the spiritual energy in an ancestor realm expert's body was already very large, and two, the recovery ability of an ancestor realm expert was also very terrifying. Spiritual energy surged out of his body, and Xiao Chun pushed the sword world to its peak. Countless sword chi flew out from all directions at Xietian. Under the wild attack of these sword chi, countless small wounds quickly appeared on Xietian's body. Blood kept flowing out of his wounds, but this was not Xiao Chen's killing move. With just these methods, it was not enough to kill Xietian. At this time, Xiao Chun held his sword with both hands and swept out. With a sweep of his sword, 100-meter-long sword chi cut through the sky. The golden sword glow was so dazzling that people couldn't open their eyes. The might of this sword was terrifying. Before the sword even arrived, the terrifying might was already enough to make people tremble with fear. He was instantly swallowed by the golden sword glow and the golden sword chi cut through Xietian's body. Moreover, the divine soul in his body was also instantly erased. To ensure that Xietian didn't have the slightest chance, Xiao Chun didn't hold back with this sword. Even when the sword finally hit Xietian, Xiao Chun didn't relax at all. His eyes were still staring right at Xietian. Seeing Xietian's body being cut in half, Xiao Chun's divine sense swept out. After the previous matter, Xiao Chun was even more cautious this time. He had to ensure that Xietian was truly dead. Under Xiao Chen's divine sense, Xietian's life force was quickly dissipating. Feeling Xietian's life force dissipating, Xiao Chen felt a bit more at ease, but he didn't relax too much. What happened to Xietian was too strange. In a normal situation, everyone else would have died without a doubt, but it was hard to say for Xietian, so Xiao Chun didn't dare relax. Xiao Chun had been using his divine sense to cover Xietian the entire time. Only when he felt that Xietian's vitality had completely dissipated did Xiao Chun finally relax. However, just as Xietian was about to die, a black mist rushed out of Xietian's body and quickly dissipated. This black mist was very similar to the black mist that surrounded Xietian before, but it was a bit different. This black mist was much darker and could even be said to be more solid, just like a mass of black water. This mass of black water came out of Xietian's body and then disappeared. Following that, Xietian's aura also disappeared. This was a strange scene. Xiaochan wanted to make a move to take that mass of black water, but he was a step too slow in the end. Xiaochan looked at the unfamiliar Xietian in front of him. Although his appearance didn't change at all, the feeling he gave to Xiaochan was incomparably unfamiliar, like he wasn't a person at all. Xiaochan looked at the unfamiliar Xietian in front of him. Although his appearance didn't change at all, the feeling he gave to Xiaochan was incomparably unfamiliar, like he wasn't a person at all. So Xiaochan was certain that the Xietian in front of him wasn't Xietian at all. However, as soon as Xiaochan's voice fell, Xietian's reply was to attack without any warning. Kill. After coldly spitting out the word kill, Xietian took a step forward and charged at Xiaochan in an instant. At the same time, the black mist around him wildly expanded, quickly enveloping the space the two of them were in. Under the cover of the black mist, Xietian's aura increased by several times, reaching the limit of the ancestor realm. He sent out a fierce punch, but the attack style was no different from before. However, Xiaochan was certain that this wasn't Xietian, or rather something had inherited Xietian's body and martial skills. Without time to think, Xiaochan could only send out a slash and clash with Xietian. The two of them clashed, and this time, Xietian actually wasn't at a disadvantage. The two of them were evenly matched. Xiaochan, who had the absolute advantage before, but now that he was fighting with Xietian, he couldn't gain any advantage at all. This kind of change shocked everyone, but before anyone could think about it, Xiaochan and Xietian's battle had already begun. At this moment, Xiaochan didn't have the slightest bit of carelessness. Although he didn't know what had happened to Xietian, he had to kill Xietian in the end. Whether the Xietian in front of him was Xietian or not, or if someone else had taken over his body, Xiaochan couldn't let Xietian continue to exist. His eyes becoming sharp, Xiaochan didn't show any mercy and attacked with incomparable ruthlessness. On the other hand, Xietian maintained the same expression from beginning to end, not showing any changes at all. The two of them fought fiercely, this battle even more intense than before. Moreover, the fight between Xiaochan and Xietian was no longer as easy as before. The golden slash fused with realm flash didn't have much of an effect on the current Xietian, because every time Xiaochan attacked, Xietian would be able to block it in time. His defense, strength, speed, and reaction speed had all increased by quite a bit compared to before. Only his cultivation hadn't changed. Although it had increased, it still hadn't broken through to the Emperor realm. There were big changes in all aspects, but for Xiaochan, he couldn't care less about these things right now. The most important thing right now was to kill Xietian. As for what happened to Xietian, it wouldn't be too late to slowly investigate it later. This kind of change shocked everyone, but before they could think about it, Xiaochan and Xietian's battle had already begun. At this moment, Xiaochan didn't have the slightest bit of carelessness. Although he didn't know what had happened to Xietian, he had to kill Xietian in the end. Whether the Xietian in front of him was Xietian or not, or if someone else had taken over his body, Xiaochan couldn't let Xietian continue to exist. His eyes becoming sharp, Xiaochan didn't show any mercy and attacked with incomparable ruthlessness. On the other hand, Xietian maintained the same expression from beginning to end, not showing any changes at all. The two of them fought fiercely, this battle even more intense than before. Moreover, the fight between Xiaochan and Xietian was no longer as easy as before. The golden slash fused with realm flash didn't have much an effect on the current Xietian, because every time Xiaochan attacked, Xietian would be able to block it. His defense, strength, speed, and reaction time had all increased by quite a bit, but his cultivation hadn't changed at all. Although it had increased, it still hadn't broken through to the Emperor realm. There were big changes in all aspects, But for Xiao Chun, he couldn't care less about these things right now. The most important thing right now was to kill Xie Tian. As for what had happened to Xie Tian, it wouldn't be too late to investigate it later. The fierce battle broke out, and in the blink of an eye, the two of them had already exchanged hundreds of blows. Their attacks were extremely fast and fierce, the space around them constantly being torn apart by the aftershocks of their battle. The black fog and sword chi constantly collided, contended, and fought against each other. The sword in Xiao Chen's hand turned into a rain of swords that constantly attacked Xie Tian. In a battle of this level, others naturally couldn't interfere. As for Junwei, Xiao Chun didn't let him interfere and instead asked him to focus on dealing with Xie Tian's subordinates. With Junwei's help, they could greatly reduce the casualties on the sword sect side. As for Xie Tian, Xiao Chun was still confident that he could defeat him. This battle lasted for 3 days. The two of them fought from the boundless world to the void, and their injuries weren't light. Xiao Chun himself was also quite injured. However, compared to Xie Tian, Xiao Chen's injuries were much lighter. Xie Tian was already heavily injured. Only even if Xie Tian was heavily injured, he still didn't have any intention of retreating. Moreover, he didn't fear death, and even his expression didn't change that much. This kind of action made Xiao Chen's heart filled with doubt. However, the battle had already reached this point, and it was about time to end it. In these 3 days, the two of them had consumed a lot of energy, and Xie Tian only had a single breath left. Even when the sword finally hit Xie Tian, Xiao Chun didn't relax at all. His eyes were still staring right at Xie Tian. Seeing Xie Tian's body being cut in half, Xiao Chen's divine sense swept out. After the previous matter, Xiao Chun was even more cautious this time. He had to ensure that Xie Tian was truly dead. Under Xiao Chen's divine sense, Xie Tian's life force was quickly dissipating. Feeling Xie Tian's life force dissipating, Xiao Chun felt a bit more at ease, but he didn't relax too much. What happened to Xie Tian was too strange. In a normal situation, everyone else would have died without a doubt, but it was hard to say for Xie Tian, so Xiao Chun didn't dare relax. Xiao Chun had been using his divine sense to cover Xie Tian the entire time. Only when he felt that Xie Tian's vitality had completely dissipated did Xiao Chun finally relax. However, when Xie Tian's body was completely destroyed, a black mist rushed out of Xie Tian's body and quickly dissipated. This black mist was very similar to the black mist that surrounded Xie Tian before, but it was a bit different. This black mist was much darker and could even be considered more solid, just like a mass of black water. This mass of black water came out of Xie Tian's body and then disappeared. Following that, Xie Tian's aura also disappeared. This was a strange scene. Xiao Chun wanted to make a move to take that mass of black water, but he was a step too slow in the end. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. This chapter ends.